Mic testing, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Our loving namaskarams to all of you on behalf of the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala and the Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram. A very good morning to everyone. I am Sunanda and I am pleased to take you through what promises to be an enlightening and inspiring morning. We request our dignitaries, Professor M.D. Srinivas, our chief guest this morning, Professor V. Ramanathan, our distinguished speakers, to please take their seats on stage. We request our volunteers, Vivek and Geeta, to please accompany them to the stage. We now request our dear Ma Devaki from the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala Trust and the Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram to please join our chief guest and respected speakers on the stage. As we wait for them to be seated, we request you to kindly keep your cell phones turned off during the duration of the program. Thank you for your kind understanding. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Our heartful pranams to Bhagavan Yogi Ramsuratkumar for gathering us here today on this auspicious occasion, the inauguration ceremony of the National Conference on New Perspectives on Science and Technology in Ancient India, hosted by the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala Trust of the Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram in Tiruvannamalai. Bhagavan Yogi Ramsuratkumar has gifted the world the chanting of the name. Thank you.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya.
Thank you. Let us now offer at the lotus feet of Bhagwan one of his favorite songs, Maitreem Bhajata. M.S. Subbalakshmi Amma sang this song in the United Nations in 1964. This beautiful benediction was given to the world by Kanchi Paramacharya. Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar has given all of us a divine assurance that while Maitreem Bhajata is being offered, the blessings of two great Mahatmas, Kanchi Paramacharya and Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar, are pouring on us. We now request the group to please offer Maitreem Bhajata.
अखिल जेत्री युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणम् त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणम् मैत्री भजत अखिल जेत्री मैत्री भजत अखिल जेत्री जननी पृथ्वी कामदुगास्ते जननी पृथ्वी कामदुगास्ते जनको देवः सकल दयालो जनको देवः सकल दयालो दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता दाम्यत दत्त दयध्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां.
Thank you, dear singers. Before we move on to the rest of the program, let us contemplate on the meaning of Maitreem Bhajata, this beautiful song that they just sang. It is one of Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar's favorite songs. Let us understand its meaning in English. Cultivate friendship and humanity, which will conquer the hearts of everyone. Look upon others as similar to yourself. Renounce war, forsake competition, forego unrightful aggression or acquiring by force. Mother Earth yields all that we require. God, our Father, is most compassionate. Practice restraint, give unto others. Be kind to others. O people of the world, may all people attain all goodness, happiness and prosperity in the world and spiritual upliftment. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar. We now invite our dear Ma Devaki from the Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram to deliver her welcome address. Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar declared that Ma Devaki was his eternal slave. He also appointed her as the life trustee of Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram and the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala. Ma Devaki is a revered spiritual teacher, an inspiring speaker, and a compassionate guide to seekers worldwide. Her devoted life of Guru Bhakti and Guru Seva serves as an inspiration to many. Through enlightening satsangs, she beautifully illustrates the glory and grace of Yogi Ramsuratkumar, encouraging individuals to lead lives centered on God remembrance and service, deeply rooted in Bhagwan's profound teachings. We request our dear Ma to please share her welcome address. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
இது கொஞ்சம் மேலே இது ரொம்ப கிட்ட. ராமசுரதகுமாரம் தேவம் காமகாஞ்சனமர்தனம் தேவகீ பரமானந்தம் யோகிம் வந்தே ஜகத்குரும். Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jai Guru Raya. My Ananta Koti Namaskarams to the lotus feet of our Guru Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, who is the inspiration, motivation and the driving force behind this great event. If I should say it all in one word, it is the grace of my Guru Bhagwan. So it is with his blessing as my backdrop and his love in my heart, I stand before you all to welcome you all to this great momentous event. I owe a deep debt of gratitude to Sri Sri Muralidhara Swamiji for his powerful blessings, divine guidance, support and practical help towards this seminar. My Anantakoti grateful pranams to his holy feet. When Corona attacked all of a sudden and the ashrams Ma Devaki Veda Patasala Trust had to stay idle without the run of traditional Veda Patasala, I was at a loss to know what to do and how to bring in activities. I approached Sri Sri Muralidhara Swamiji for his divine guidance and help. It's from Sri Swamiji the idea of this seminar came as a great blessing. Indeed, but for Sri Swamiji's sound guidance, this great event could not have come to this culmination. Since I have been out of touch with the academics for a number of years now, I was teaching physics in Sharada College for 20 years, and after I had darshan of Bhagwan, the very first experience was so great, I could not think of anything else, and definitely not going back to my job, which seemed very tasteless to me. And that's how it all happened. So I've been completely out of touch. I wondered how to go about this seminar. Again, it was he, Sri Swamiji, advised me to talk to Dr. K. Ramasubramanian, a doctorate in theoretical physics, besides being an engineer and a master in Sanskrit. Currently, a professor at IIT Mumbai with several important books and titles to his credit. He is also the son of the well-known retired principal of Sanskrit College, Vedanta Vibhushanam, Mahamahopadhyaya Shri Krishnamurti Shastrigal, who had visited our ashram a few times before. But Dr. K. Subramaniam in turn brought in Dr. V. Ramanathan, IIT, Banaras Hindu University, who is seated here in front of you, who has been helping us so beautifully with great involvement and enthusiasm in every way possible, readily and cheerfully, ever since. We owe him a deep debt of gratitude again. Dr. K. Subramanian, unfortunately, is unable to come to this session, but he would be chairing the afternoon session. We have all gathered here today to inaugurate this special event of National Conference on Modern Perspectives on Science and Technology in Ancient India. As you all see, this occasion is graced by the presence of our esteemed chief guest, the learned, eminent professor and plenary speaker, the chairman of Center for Policy Studies, Dr. M.D. Srinivas. We are extremely grateful to him because at the very short notice, readily, with such humility, consented to take this place of the chief guest, which is no small grace. So, our grateful pranams to you, sir. And of course, the distinguished professor, Dr. V. Ramanathan of IIT, Banaras Hindu University, who, being on various government advisory and research councils, is playing a very important role, shaping the education policies for our future generations. As I said before, we are grateful to Dr. Ramanathan for all his timely and kind help in all the details of this seminar. My hearty welcome namaskarams to both of you, dear professors. Now, the esteemed dignitaries, eminent professors who have already come on, those of them are yet to come, learned speakers, scholars, and the enlightened audience who have gathered here, dear all, my warm welcome namaste to all of you to this special distinguished conference. All your presences add immense value and significance to this occasion, motivating students to strive for excellence. My prayers to Bhagavan that these 3 days be a celebration of knowledge, a platform for a vibrant exchange of profound insights of our ancestors and the modern understanding of science and technology. Before starting the program today, let us know something about the background of this Veda Patasala Trust and why we are conducting this seminar. Way back in the late 90s, my Guru Bhagavan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar often declared, "To tell you the truth, my friends, the whole humanity exists only because of the Vedas. The ancient rishis were great lovers of mankind. They had an entire vision of the world and they knew the best courses of action for both the material and spiritual welfare of mankind. It is that knowledge, the revealed knowledge, which had taken the form of the Vedas and Shastras. Yet, yes, these are the words from our holy master Yogi Ramsuratkumar, who always referred to himself as a dirty beggar, yet worshipped as Bhagavan by thousands of his devotees. His very name, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, by utterance, brings forth help, guidance and protection unfailingly, just as Sunanda spoke. He founded the Devaki Veda Patasala Trust with trustees Dr. Sundararaman and auditor Suresh and me to foster the growth of study and research of the Vedas, its allied disciplines, particularly Bharatiya Samskriti. Sri Yogiji was of the view that Vedas are fundamental in general to life in the whole cosmos and in particular to India. He declared that except for the Vedas, India would be dead. So Sri Yogiji's objective in setting up this Veda Patasala Trust was to revive and promote the ancient Indian culture, the Bharatiya Samskriti, which in the present day and age has suffered heavy deterioration owing to the inroads made by the crassly materialistic culture of some Western nations. The revival and fostering of the Vedas on the one hand and Indian culture on the other are closely interwoven and interdependent, for in Bhagavan's words, India is rooted in the soil of the Vedas. The Vedas constitute the timeless, invaluable treasures of our ancient wisdom and provide sources of knowledge on very many subjects, ranging from spirituality, human behavior, culture, astronomy, Jyotisha, Ayurveda, and nature, and so on. So way back in 2004, we formed a research foundation with Justice Sri Arunachalam, the spiritual successor of Yogi Ramsuratkumar, as president, and decided that our focus would be on those aspects of Vedic research that possess contemporary scientific and societal values. We approached Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Vishwa Mahavidyalaya and signed an MOU for 3 years from 2007. The two institutions jointly organized national seminars and other programs at Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram itself. The themes for successive years of seminars being Ramayana as the symbol of ancient culture in 2007, Jivan Muktas of Bharatam in 2008, and the influence of Sanskrit on the regional languages of India and English in 2009. All were conducted with remarkable success thanks to the able leadership of Sri Justice Arunachalam and Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Vishwa Mahavidyalaya. For some time afterwards, we focused on traditional Veda Patasala also, which ran rather well for some years but stopped completely after the outbreak of Corona. Today, after a long time, once again we embark on a journey that transcends time, explores into the annals of history in an endeavor to unravel the profound contributions of ancient Indian thinkers and their relevance to the realms of modern science and technology. We all know how India has been a cradle of incredible ideas that have shaped the course of human progress. Right from the concept of the number 0 to pioneering advancements in astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and metallurgy, ancient Indian scholars have left an indelible mark on the intellectual landscape of the world. Today's conference will serve as a platform for a vibrant exchange of ideas and a collaborative exploration of the intricate scientific connections between the ancient and the modern sciences, and how the ancient perspectives can inform and inspire contemporary research and innovation. Our speakers, many of them are yet to come, experts in their respective fields, will guide us through the corridors of time, shedding light on the ingenious methodologies and groundbreaking discoveries that emerged from the minds of ancient Indian thinkers. From the pioneering work of Aryabhatta and Brahmagupta in astronomy and mathematics, to the profound insights of Charaka and Sushruta in medicine. Sri Yogiji always recalled with his inimitable cascading laughter, which many of you are familiar with, Swami Vivekananda's famous reply to the question of an American, what has India been doing for ages with all its profound spiritual knowledge? You know how Vivekananda was. He was a genius. This Veera Vivekananda retorted, what has India been doing for ages? Oh yes, indeed. What has India been doing for ages except producing sages and sages? Please. Only a genius could have, and Vivekananda of such enormous caliber could have replied like this. Sri Yogiji declared in 1999 that in 25 years there would be a golden period for India. It would progress in all fields of activity. No matter what people say, what you find in newspapers, this is the prediction of a great Mahatma. It would progress in all fields of activities, right from spirituality to science and technology. We have the example of Chandrayaan recently. The world will listen to India, will look up to India. The superpowers of today will go behind India. India is the land of great masters. It is our Leela Bhumi. The Nobel Prize of 2022 for physics proved yet again the great truth about the cosmic consciousness linking everything with everything else, and the truth of the statement, when a blade of grass is trampled upon the earth, a distant star trembles. Great physicist Hans-Peter Dewar, the emeritus president of Max Planck Institute in Munich, says, whenever I give a lecture on quantum physics, I feel as if I am talking on Vedanta. I studied matter for the last 35 years, only to find out the matter does not exist. Exactly what Adi Shankara said from the Upanishad, his words. I realized that there is no matter distinct from energy, and that vast, omnipotent energy is the universal consciousness, and we humans are a tiny bit of that as an individual consciousness. And then he exclaims, oh, that is nothing but God. Jaya Jaya Shankara. All this is a quote from Hans-Peter Dewar. Dear delegates, your presences elevate the significance of this gathering and contribute to the collective learning experience. I extend once again, with all love and gratitude, Very warm welcome salutations to the distinguished speakers and the learned audience for being part of this momentous occasion. My prayers to Bhagwan is, may our collective exploration into the scientific and technological heritage of ancient India be both enlightening and transformative. Jai Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Thank you, dear Ma, for your warm welcome. We are all blessed to be here in your presence. Now we have a very, very special program. We are all blessed to get the darshan of Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar through an audio-visual presentation. Let us now listen to his own words of assurance. I request the volunteers to please play the audio-visual for the audience. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
All institution Yogi Ram. I can only say that the Vedas and the comments remain very firm. Their number may decrease, but their number may decrease, but the seed will remain out of the seed. All institution Yogi Ramsuratkumar Patasala is Holy Father's work. And in that work, this Veda Patasala is the most sacred. Veda Patasala school. People will remember this institution for centuries and centuries. Building itself and the institution itself. And so many times this beggar has told, anybody who enters the gate of this ashram is blessed by his father. Anybody who comes and goes along this Veda Patasala building once is blessed. Father has done it. Thanks to him. It is all Father's work. He has given this institution the great sacredness, the great purity, the great name, the great longevity. It will remain for centuries and centuries. How Father knows, He will provide whatever necessary. Whatever necessary for the situation, my Father will provide. Blessed are the people who entered this institution. my father's blessings to all who have worked for the institution. They had my word, it's my father's word.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. With Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar's grace, we were able to hear his powerful words of assurance about the greatness of Vedas, the greatness of the Yogi Ramsuratkumar ashram, and the greatness of the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala. Thank you, Bhagwan, for blessing all of us to be here together and hear your divine words together. Light symbolizes knowledge. We now request our chief guest, Professor M.D. Srinivas, and our dear Ma Devaki to please light the Kuttuvilakku. We request our volunteers to please help them as needed. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Jaya Guru Raya, Yogi
Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Thank you, everyone. Let's move forward to one of the highlights of our event, the inaugural speech by Professor M.D. Srinivas, our esteemed chief guest. Before I pass on the mic to him, I would like to say a few words about him. Of course, his list of accomplishments is very long, but due to paucity of time, we shall share only a brief introduction. Thank you so much, sir. Professor M.D. Srinivas's impressive educational journey right from school was guided by inspiring teachers, many of whom had a high level of Swadeshi and nationalist spirit as they had participated in the freedom movement. From a young age, he studied Sanskrit and developed a keen interest in understanding Indian traditions on mathematics, astronomy, and science. In university, he was drawn to theoretical physics and the study of quantum mechanics. He traveled to the United States in the early 70s to pursue his PhD, where his serious interest in quantum optics and the foundations of quantum mechanics were guided by eminent scholars. In the Rochester Library, he chanced upon a book on Indian logic, linguistics, and their development through the Vedic period, which showcased how Indians had achieved a very high level of sophistication in the study of languages. Dr. Srinivas plays a vital role in a group dedicated to documenting the traditions and history of Indian sciences and technologies, examining their relevance to the national concerns, needs and aspirations of the Indian people. At the Center of Policy Studies, he actively engages with subjects encompassing Indian science and technology, as well as the polity, society and economy spanning both 18th century and contemporary India. Professor M.D. Srinivas is a fellow of the Indian National Science Academy, currently under the aegis of the Apex Textbook Committee. His work benefits a wide spectrum of people, from students to scholars. Thank you, sir. He has done pioneering work through books and scholarly papers in bringing to light gems from maths and astronomy from ancient India. Thank you so much, sir, for all your wonderful work and your immense contributions to society. We now request him to share his inaugural address.
My pranams to Devaki and all the devotees of Yogi Ramsuratkumar here. I am highly honored to be asked to give this address. It's very gratifying that the organization which is dedicated to Veda Vidya is now organizing a very important meeting on Indian science and technology, emerging perspectives. The Upanishads talk of two Vidyas. Mundakopanishad says, Dve Vidye Veditavye Paracha Aparacha. That there are two Vidyas. One is Paravidya, another is Aparavidya. In Ishavasya Upanishad, it talks of Avidya and Vidya. But both are Vidyas. And in our understanding, most of what we learn, most of what we teach, most of what we practice is avidya or aparavidya. It has to do with living in harmony with the rest of the universe. So it has to do with mundane knowledge, but not any mundane knowledge, not any kind of understanding of the universe, but an understanding of the universe that is in conformity with the approach to Paravidya or Vidya. So our Aparavidya has to be informed with the quest to Paravidya, and we should never be confused as to what Paravidya is. Paravidya yaya tad aksharam adhigamyate. So it is the state of actual realization of the ultimate reality of the universe, which of course is not something that is given to most of us ordinarily, except to blessed great souls. So Paravidya is something that we can say is the knowledge of the ultimate reality, the unity of the entire creation, which is one of the greatest messages of our Indian civilization to the world of knowledge. That there is an inherent unity in the entire creation. I mean, there can be different philosophical understandings as to what this unity is. But that there is a great unity in the entire creation is the basic fundamental understanding of Indian civilization to the world of learning. And Paravidya is one where you really have understood that and have realized that. So in fact, Mundaka Upanishad says, Tatra apara Rigvedam, Yajurvedam, Samavedam, Atharvavedam iti. So even Rigveda is Aparavidya, Yajurveda is Aparavidya, Samaveda is Aparavidya, meaning they are all paths to the Paravidya, and you should never confuse yourself that just because you are doing Adhyayana of Vedas, which is very great, which is extraordinary, or you are learning the Bhashyam from great scholars like Professor Krishnamurti Shastri, that you have reached the Paravidya. So you are still in the domain of contingent knowledge, Aparavidya or Avidya. Why I am saying all this is because outside of India there is tremendous confusion on this kind of a subject. Many other civilizations also had great quest. It is not that they were only materialistic. They also wanted to seek and understand the ultimate reality. But they lacked the perspective, that Bharatiya perspective, which was the inherent unity of all of creation. They lacked the understanding that much of our knowledge that we acquire is to be able to manage to live in harmony with the creation, and therefore it is knowledge that is temporal, it is changing, it is what may be called tentative. That should never be confused with the ultimate realization of the truth of the universe. So, outside India, most civilizations have repeatedly behaved as if they have realized the ultimate truth. And second, they have also been ordained to impose that truth, to force that truth by removing the understanding, the knowledge that the other civilizations have had. And this as much holds for their quest, non-material quest like religion or their spirituality. It's not that India is the only home of spirituality. That they think that they have realized the truth and all others truths have no place in the world, or that in the material realm also they think that we have acquired the greatest knowledge. Once we see some small thing, once we understand some small principle, we think that we know everything. There was a great scientist called Archimedes. He lived in 2nd century before the Common Era. And he discovered a very interesting principle of lever, that you want to lift an object, you take a long enough rod and then you apply a small force, but the actual sort of angular momentum will be large because of the length of the rod, and a fairly high amount of weight can be lifted that way. So it's a very interesting principle, very useful principle. He could move ships by using this. It's claimed, whether it actually happened or not, we don't know. People who have written biographies of Archimedes say he moved ships. But what he is credited with is a different kind of a statement. That you give me enough space outside of this earth, then I will be able to move the entire earth by using this principle. So to think from having understood a small principle of working in our immediate surrounding nature, to think that you have understood everything and that you can move the earth. I mean, in India, the only person who tried to move the earth was a asura called Hiranyaksha. So the thought immediately goes to that level. We all have heard of Oppenheimer. There was a film which celebrated his life recently. And he was a great devotee of Indian scriptures also. That he had studied Bhagavad Gita and things like that. This we all know. But now, the kind of understanding that civilization imposes on you is reflected in this one great story which all of us have heard. That Oppenheimer was the leader of the project known as the Manhattan Project, which produced the first atom bomb in 1945. And then when the report of the first dropping of the bomb and the kind of clouds that came up after the bomb was dropped, Oppenheimer is supposed to have recited a couple of verses from Bhagavad Gita, one being this famous verse of Krishna's Vishwarupa Darshana, looking at which Gita explains, Divi Surya Sahasrasya Bhavet Yugapad Uttita, that this Vishwarupa Darshana of Bhagavan Shri Krishna was as if thousands of suns had arisen together. Now you have dropped a bomb, which may be a very destructive weapon, but it is essentially a cracker. It's essentially something that explodes and a bigger explosion. And to think that you are creating the brightness of 1,000 suns. Can we imagine what even the brightness of one sun can be? So the understanding that small truths that we understand in the realm of the ordinary knowledge of nature or of humans, that these can replace or these can give us the power over the entire universe, that we can create 1,000 suns or we can move the entire earth. So these are thoughts which can never arise in a civilization like India. The thoughts that we created are very relevant. These Indian knowledge systems about which, or Indian sciences and technologies about which we are going to talk in the next 2-3 days. They are very wide, they are very broad, they are very, very deep. The older texts talk of 18 Vidyas. So something like Vishnu Purana talks of 18 Vidyas, which includes the 4 Vedas, the 6 Vedangas. 6 Vedangas are Shiksha, which is the science of phonetics, Vyakarana, which is science of grammar, Nirukta, which is science of deriving meaning, etymology, Chandas, which is the science of prosody or meters, Kalpa, which is the science of constructing Yajna-Vedis, altars, and performing various sacrifices, and Jyotisha, which is the understanding of time and the direction on the earth by observing the motion of celestial bodies. So these were the Vedangas. They were essential part of carrying out the discipline of daily life that the Vedas demanded, and to understand the meaning of the Vedas, these Vedangas are necessary. So 10 Vidyas are done. Then along with it, Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharma Shastra. So Purana includes both the Itihasas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and hundreds of Puranas, not just the older Puranas like Vishnu Purana, Brahmanda Purana. Hundreds of Puranas have been their compilation of knowledge, written at various times. Then Nyaya, that includes various darshanas, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, etc. Mimamsa includes both Uttara Mimamsa and Purva Mimamsa, Vedanta Shastra, and Dharma Shastra. So we have had 14. Then 4 more Vedas were called Upavedas. They are Ayurveda, Artha Shastra, Gandharva Veda, the science of music, and Dhanurveda, the science and art of warfare. So these 18 Vidyas are listed in Vishnu Purana, our ancient, one of the most ancient Puranas. There are 32 Vidyas listed in a later work called Shukraniti Sara. And that of course goes into various sub-disciplines. I mean, these 18 very many sub-disciplines of them are given the status of Vidya. But this Shukraniti-sara also includes two Vidyas. One is called Nastika Vidya and another is called Yavanam Matam. Nastika Vidya is basically that the understanding of what is the appropriate dharma is not to be based upon the Shruti or the Vedas. That is the Nastika Vidya. It has its own understanding of what is dharma and adharma. But Yavanam Matam, what Shukraniti-sara states, is very interesting. Ishvara karanam yatra adrishyosti jagatas sada. So that is the understanding of Yavana Mata, which in today's language is called Abrahamic religions. That Ishvara is the creator, but he stays disconnected with the universe all the time, or he is not seeable in the universe all the time. So this is the entire opposite of Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Etkincha Jagatyam Jagat. That this entire universe is pervaded by Ishvara, is the Vedanta Mata or the Bharatiya Mata. And Ishvara Karanam Yatra Adrishyosti Jagatat Sada, that he is not to be seen in the universe. So, we created all these knowledges, but they are imbibed with this understanding that Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Etkincha Jagatyam Jagat and Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita. So whatever we therefore enjoy has to be done with purely first doing Tyaga of all that, which means that we share whatever we enjoy with all aspects of creation before consuming them, which is what is described in all our Vedas, etc. That the idea of yajna is that you create a plenty and then share it with everybody, not just humans, with the bhutas, with the devas, with the pitris, with the all aspects of creation. And then you also consume that. Aghasya kevalam bhumte yah pachant yatma karanat is what Bhagavad Gita says when it describes Karma Yoga. And in Karma Yoga, one of the most important things is this, performing the yajnas. And one who cooks for himself or herself alone is consuming sin only. So these are, there are hundreds of ways of explaining this. Every great scripture of India has this kind of a sentiment written all over. So what I was trying to say was that not only did we create very, very sophisticated, useful, practical knowledge systems, so many vidyas which dealt with the material world, the science of astronomy, the art and science of mathematics, medicine, architecture, metallurgy. But we also had a view of their role in society, their limitations, their status with respect to knowledge in general. That they were the kind of vidyas that you need to acquire in order to live a dharmic life in harmony with the universe. But they should not be confused. They have to be imbibed with the spirit of the search for ultimate truth. And they themselves should not be confused with the ultimate truth itself. So you may know the movement of distant galaxies. You may be able to measure the rate at which they may be going. You may be able to analyze even the constituents of all these galaxies through your spectrometer. And you may even sort of estimate the time when they would have started moving. This is all correct. But if we have acquired all this knowledge, it should tell us how huge the universe is, how Brahmanda it is, with what great energy it is functioning, and that we have only had glimpse of some small aspects of it in our own space-time window. But instead of thinking that way, we think that every new discovery has told us what creation was, what happened in the first 3 minutes of creation. There is a book by a very great physicist called The First 3 Minutes. So to think that we will be able to handle all that, unless we say that what we know today, it seems to us maybe this happened. But that is not the way most of us, at least in India, understand science. Science is something evidence-based. Science is something tested knowledge. And therefore, it is unquestionable truth. Indian understanding of science was that science is always questionable truth. It's only paravidya that once you have reached the tadaksharam adhigamyate, once you have had the sakshatkara of the ultimate reality, that is unquestionable. That ultimate reality exists is unquestionable. That pervades the entire universe is unquestionable. But all other knowledge is transient knowledge, necessary knowledge, which is imbued with that larger spirit. So you should never think of our human knowledge as something that can alter the universe. We cannot even claim that we have made such changes in the world which are irreversible. Humans have only the capacities that are given to us. But in these great capacities are endowed to us by the creation. But as humans, whatever knowledge systems we generate, they may be very powerful, they may be very deep, they may be very sophisticated, but neither should they be confused with having reached ultimate knowledge, ultimate unquestionable truth through them. Nor should we think that this gives us the claim to power over reordering the universe. It gives us the understanding to reorganize our own lives. It gives us the understanding to lead our lives in tune with the rhythm of nature, what our Vedas call as Rita, or what we call as Dharma. So this is the nature of Indian knowledge systems. This is the nature of our sciences and technologies. The details we have forgotten in the last 2-3 centuries due to a historical accident. And for this forgetting, all of us educated Indians have to blame ourselves. And for not recovering our own knowledge, we have to blame ourselves once again. That under certain extraneous, extraordinary circumstances, our knowledge was decried by those who ruled upon us. But we became an active part in acquiring new knowledge from them. But while acquiring new knowledge, we could have thought that, yes, there is something here, but we can test it against the anvil of the knowledge that we have had. But that freedom we didn't have. So we somehow fell into the understanding that they told us that all this is outdated, all this is part of a very primitive society, all this is part of an iniquitous social order. We have taken all those assumptions, though we could not see any evidence of India having been that, either in our own lives or from the ancient chronicles that we have read. So we thought that we will learn everything afresh. There may be many things that we could have learned from others. And it was not only in 19th century that the Indians learned or exchanged knowledge, ideas in sciences, technologies with the rest of the world. Indians have been in touch with a large part of the Eurasian world for millennia. And we have had interaction. Indian knowledge reached the whole of Southeast Asia and East Asia in great amounts. We see the biggest temple of Vishnu is in Angkor Wat in Cambodia. We see our alphabet, which is a very scientific alphabet, unlike ABCD, which do not have fixed pronunciations. and which are not adequate to cover all the sounds. We have these 50 letters of our Varnamala, which is a very scientific alphabet. Each symbol there represents one clear sound. So we never have to, in Indian languages when we learn them, we don't need a dictionary to remember the spelling. The way we write the word itself tells us how to pronounce that word. And that kind of a script, which is common to all Indian languages, even the original form of Tamil known as the Grantham script had that. And that kind of a script went to Korea, and even the Japanese worked out a script similar to that. Whole of Southeast Asians adopted. Thailand as a script from that. Their calendar was based upon ours. Their kings ruled in the name of Rama. They called their capitals Ayodhya. So it's not that we didn't have interaction. Our number systems went to West Asia. And in the process, we got lot of information, lot of ideas from them. But we never thought that we will sort of, Namma Bukkellam Moota Katti Vechittu, we start learning all these books and in their own language. So this sort of Vismriti has happened in the last 2 centuries. And meetings like this are recognition that we have to come out of it. But the task is arduous. Our Vismriti has been deep. Our Paramparya Vicheda has been fairly significant. And we have to come out of the moha that the knowledge of others is the true knowledge and what we had is something of an outdated nature. We have to realize that for whatever goals, for whatever perspective that our fundamental civilizational spirit gave us, which I described in terms of either Ishavasyamidam Sarvam or any of our great quotations, we had the knowledge which was the best representative of that. For those seekers who sought knowledge with the spirit that the universe had a fundamental unity, all creation, that humans were only a part of it, the knowledge that we created was imbibed with that spirit, imbibed with that understanding that we have to, all this great intellect that has been granted to us, is to learn to live in harmony with the rest of creation. So all our knowledge was imbibed with that. None of the knowledge outside India, except, as I said, those civilizations which were deeply influenced by us, is imbibed with that kind of a spirit. They may have many powerful gadgets. One of my professors used to call them toys. Magical toys with which we get impressed. But they do not have the robustness. They do not have the wisdom that is inherent in most of Indian knowledge. But we have to recover all that. And unless we recover, we keep making mistakes. I will close by giving you one small example, which I will then expand upon in my talk on astronomy. Two more. You see, 4 days ago, there was an important astronomical phenomenon. It was called winter solstice. It happened on December 22nd morning. As you know, the point at which sun rises in the east is not a constant point. If you set up some mark with a stone before your house and observe, if the horizon is clearly visible to you, you will see that the rising point of the sun keeps oscillating. In once in a year, it comes back to the, so it goes northwards, southwards. So these were well known. These are described in the Vedas also. It used to be called the Uttarayana and the Dakshinayana of the sun. And this star with which the change of direction of sun's motion happens is more or less the same during our lives. But there is a small change in the point at which the sun rises in the east, the star that rises along with the sun. And that's a phenomenon, we will discuss it maybe in the talk on astronomy. So because of that, the Uttarayana used to happen in the middle of the asterism called Dhanishta or Shravishta. That was about 1800 years before the Common Era. Then at the time when the Vedanga Jyotisha was written, it used to happen in the beginning of the nakshatra called Dhanishta. Now after the Anishta, it keeps moving and it happens now in the second pada of the nakshatra called Mula. And because of that, the date or the time at which it happens is different from the movement of the sun along the nakshatras. I mean, it keeps changing once in 72 years, it changes by 1 degree. So, we have confused the entry of the sun into the what is called the Makara Rashi, which happens on January 14th. The northern movement of the sun also began by when sun entered Makara Rashi, but that was about 1600 years ago or 1700 years ago, around 300 years of the common era, this happened. But that keeps changing. And the Christian or the Gregorian calendar is fixed in such a way that this winter solstice or the Uttarayana occurs around December 21st or 22nd. And our Makara Sankramana occurs around January 14th. About 200 years ago, it was occurring around January 11th or January 10th. About 500 years ago, it was occurring about January 5th. And about 1600 years ago, it occurred around December 21st. So, the entry of the sun into Makara Rashi is different from, which is Makara Sankramana, is different from the Uttarayana, the beginning of the northward movement of the sun. And today there is a difference of about 23-24 days. Now our astronomers knew this, our architects knew this, and many of our constructions, which are temples where the sun's rise of the sun falls on the deity or something like that, was so adjusted that it happens on a particular day. Many temples were constructed that it happens on the Uttarayana day. So there is a Gavi Gangadhareshwara temple in Bangalore, where this used to happen on the Uttarayana day. It was constructed maybe around the time of Kempegowda, 400-500 years ago. But, and there are some paintings of the temple 200-300 years ago which show this happening also. But later on, when this temple got some renovated, they found that this was not happening on the day of Makara Sankramana. And so they changed the whole thing, such that today, if you read newspaper, they will say, this Gavi Gangadhareshwara temple, the sun's rays fall on the deity on the January 14th. The original construction was not that. So I am saying our visibility is so great that we don't look into our texts. We don't look into our authorities. We don't discuss amongst ourselves. We go by the current opinion stated here and there. So the Sringeri temple of Vidyashankara also has 2 pillars which have the sun's rays coming and touching them on the summer solstice and winter solstice days, which is different from the days on which the sun enters various rashis. There are 12 pillars there. But that was constructed at the time of Vijayanagar Empire in 1340. So what I am saying is, if you look up any Panchanga today, you will not see the word Uttarayana on December 21st or 22nd. Whereas all our Dharma Shastra, all our Shrauta Sutras, Grihya Sutras prescribe various things to be performed on the time of Uttarayana. You know the famous Mahabharata story that Bhishma waited till the Uttarayana to set in to end his life. So, that we knew, and we knew it till 200 years ago that this keeps happening. This was called Ayana Chalana in our astronomy text, but we have forgotten. Not only we have forgotten, we have confused our society on this. Because the common people can recognize Amavasya or Purnima, but what will they know about Uttarayana or Dakshinayana? So whatever we write in newspapers or speak in colleges is what is taken by our public. So the seriousness of taking Indian knowledge, the seriousness with which our books have to be read, the seriousness with which they have to be analyzed, and even if we want to analyze them from the perspective of modern science, we should realize modern science is a Shishu of 200-300 years, and so it may be saying something, but we have to give it the respect that is due for a young emergent science with its own ideas. And whatever is important and valid in it, we could take. That's not the problem. But to take that as the gospel truth and look at our books is the first error that we should give up. But the first practice that we should start is we should look at our own books, our own chronicles, our own epigraphs. There are lakhs of inscriptions in South India, and we have not edited even 1/3 or 1/4 of them, and we have not translated beyond 10% of them. They give the detailed analysis of how our society functions. There are millions of manuscripts. We have published a small part of them. And those that were published by Indologists 200 years ago, we still take those editions. We don't want to look at a new manuscript. We don't want to see whether what they edited, did they know enough to edit a ancient Indian manuscript. So all this is a great journey, and we are just beginning to embark our journey because we have come out of this moha. We are talking about our ancient Indian sciences. They are not ancient. They were valid or very active till 200 years ago. And we want to now teach them in our schools. We want to teach them in our colleges. But we should do very serious research on them. We should have every university having number of departments studying these subjects. And we should tell our people to come out of this idea that much of knowledge is of recent origin. Knowledge is flowing, it's eternal, but it's also transient. And the timely knowledge we have to acquire for our ages. We can take it from modern thought, but we will be able to take it from modern sciences only if we are masters of our own thought and our own knowledge. Because that is the source of our creativity, that is the source of our spirituality, that is the source of our dharma. Then we will be in a position to be in tune, and of course then we can claim that we are wanting to move towards Vishwaguru. Today we should first learn to be Shishyas of Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. Only when we have mastered that, we can think of becoming Vishwaguru. Thank you.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jai Guru Raya. Thank you so much, sir, for your very, very inspiring and enlightening words. It really made us think of inculcating more humility and harmony in our everyday lives. Thank you so, so much, sir. We now request our dear Ma Devaki, life trustee of the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala of the Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram, to please honor Dr. Srinivas and present him with a memento. We request our volunteers to please lend a hand on stage. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
Suratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar,
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Before we proceed with the program, I'd like to give all of you an idea of what is to come next. We have the vote of thanks by Dr. V. Ramanathan, followed by a tea break. So next we will have the vote of thanks. But before that, I would like to give a short and sweet introduction about Dr. V. Ramanathan. Again, the list of accomplishments are many, but we will have to keep it short and sweet. Dr. V. Ramanathan is a physical chemist working in the Department of Chemistry at IIT Banaras Hindu University. His academic journey is marked by dedicated research in the field of chemistry with a specific focus on laser spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy, and imaging, as well as computational chemistry. Dr. Ramanathan's expertise in these areas have positioned him as a leading figure in the academic community. He earned his PhD in chemistry from the distinguished IIT Kanpur and has not one but 2 postdoctoral fellowships from the University of Basel, Switzerland, and Seoul National University, South Korea. His research interests lie in studying the scientific heritage of India, Indian history, philosophy, Indian traditional medicine, Indian classical music, and Indian languages. Do you know that he can comfortably speak 7 Indian languages? He has the distinction of being a Fulbright scholar and is a core committee member of Indian National Young Academy of Science, among other eminent professional research organizations. Today, we are privileged to have him here with us, and we look forward to his vote of thanks. We would also like to add here that Dr. V. Ramanathan has shared his invaluable counsel in the entire planning of this national conference. A big, big thank you to you, sir. He will now deliver the vote of thanks for the inauguration ceremony. This will be followed by the tea break. Tea and coffee will be served in the first floor. And we would like to apologize since we are running slightly behind schedule. Thank you for your kind understanding. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
Namasabhabhya Sabhapatibhyascha Ve Namo Namaha. Respected Ma Devaki, devotees of Yogi Ramsuratkumar, our chief guest Professor M.D. Srinivas, my humble pranams to one and all. It's one of the unique occasions where a person who is entrusted to give vote of thanks has been given such a long introduction. So it's a unique privilege. Thank you very much for that. It's indeed my blessings as well as privilege to be a part of this conference organization. Whatever little I could do, I hope it added value to this organization of this 3 days conference. I consider it, as I said, it's my blessing and privilege to be this playing this part. Now especially I'm entrusted with giving the vote of thanks. First and foremost, I thank Ma Devaki Veda Patasala Trust and herself, Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram, to have taken it upon themselves this mighty topic during such period of time when there is a resurgence of looking at Indian scientific heritage and what has been our achievements from the past. Because speaking in the academia, confining it to the niche circles of academicians will not serve the society in large over a short period of time. It may percolate over a longer period of time, but when organizations like Yogi Ramsuratkumar Ashram takes it up upon themselves to disseminate these values, and that too through, I would say, horse's mouth, like just we had a glimpse of Professor M.D. Srinivas delivering what ought to be taught and what ought not to be taught. So it's indeed great privilege that, and I thank from the bottom of my heart as a participant as well as on behalf of all the participants here and the speakers, that this ashram has taken up this audacious task of bringing in scholars for 3 days and deliberating and disseminating the contents of our ancient Indian scientific past. I'm reminded, when I was listening to our chief guest's address, I was reminded of a line, this is not, but we didn't think about organizing it exactly during Margadi, but it so happens that it is the Margadi season that we have had it, where the first 10 days, the Andal goes up waking up. You know, if you look at today's Tirupavai also, Totrum unakke Kumbhakarananum, Totrum unakke Perinduyil tan Tandano. So when Srinivasji was talking, it is like the 200 years we have been in this slumber, Perinduyil. And it is now like we are getting the wake-up calls that what is it that we need to look at, what is it that we need to look at it in a very critical point of view. So indeed we have had this long slumber, and through such interventions, through such addresses by stalwarts like Professor Srinivas, that we would be at least become first ardent Shishya of our Bharatiya knowledge, as he had rightly put it. So thank you very much, sir, for having accepted to preside over this inaugural session as well as to deliver the keynote address. I've had multiple occasions to get blessings from Professor Srinivas at various occasions, and to sum up whatever he has achieved or whatever he has delivered even today, I'm only reminded of how Kalidasa puts it as a quality of a good researcher and a teacher. He says, Shlishta kriya kasyachid atma samstha sankrantiranyasya vishesha yukta yasyo bhayam sadhusa shikshakanam dhuri pratishtha payitatva eva. There are few who are very good at acquiring knowledge, but very poor in communicating them. There are few who are very good at communicating, but do not have any stuff in them. It's very rare to find a combination of those who have got the good stuff in them and also are able to communicate it effectively. We have one such as speakers today and giving us a keynote address, who is Professor M.D. Srinivas, and to sum up his character, I felt it is apt to quote Kalidasa in his glory. I also thank all our other speakers who readily agreed our request to come and deliberate on the topic. Some of them are here. Dr. Meera is here, Dr. Pai is here, and other speakers are on their way. So thank you all for accepting our request to come and be a part of this conference, deliberating on the specialized topics on which you are experts. Last but not the least, I thank one and all in the audience, because we can't speak to empty chairs. So unless we have an active Shrota, in the form, be it a music performance or even an academic deliberation, without an active audience, because the whole program is created for this consumption by an enlightened society, so that you ruminate over it, you pass it on to your nears and dears, and that's how this word gets spread. So once again, I consider myself doubly blessed and honored to be part of this and to also be giving this vote of thanks. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Thank you so much, sir. We now request Dr. Sundararaman, trustee of the Ma Devaki Veda Patasala, to honor Dr. V. Ramanathan and present him with a memento. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, the memento had already been handed to him. Thank you so much. We have now come to the end of our inauguration ceremony. Dr. Sundararaman will honor our eminent guests. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, we have now come to the end of our inauguration ceremony. A big thank you to Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar for his grace in ensuring that our ceremony was a very enlightening and successful one. We shall now break for tea. Please proceed to the first floor for refreshments. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Thank you, everyone.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी
परमेश्वर नमो नमो
शिवनटनेश्वर नमो नमो रामसूरत्कुमार नमो नमो
शिवनटनेश्वर नमो नमो योगी रामसूरत्कुमार नमो नमो
सुदामा सदना सुंदर रूप अमृत भाषण
सदना सुंदर रूप अमृत भाषण नमो नमो
नित्यानंद निरुपम दाता निर्मल महिमा नमो नमो
नित्यानंद निरुपम दाता
निर्मल महिमा नमो नमो वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
त्रिलोकचारी त्रिगुणातीता त्रयंबकमूर्ते नमो नमो
त्रिलोकचारी त्रिगुणातीता त्रयंबकमूर्ते नमो नमो
ज्ञानदाता भक्तिदाता आनंददाता नमो नमो
ज्ञानदाता भक्तिदाता
आनंददाता नमो नमो वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
शक्ति प्रताप शांति प्रताप रुद्र प्रताप नमो नमो
शक्ति प्रताप शांति प्रताप रुद्र प्रताप नमो नमो
ब्रह्म स्वरूप प्रणव स्वरूप मानव रूप नमो नमो
ब्रह्म स्वरूप प्रणव स्वरूप मानव रूप नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
आपद्बान्धव अनदिनाथा अरुणाचल शिव नमो नमो
आपद्बान्धव अनादिनाथा अरुणाचल शिव नमो नमो
अखण्ड व्यापी हृदय निवासी पुरुषोत्तम ते नमो नमो
अखण्ड व्यापी हृदय निवासी पुरुषोत्तम ते नमो नमो
वीरेश विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
नमस्तुभ्यं 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 नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
वीरेश्वराय नमो नमो काशी विश्वेश्वराय नमो नमो
श्री परमेश्वर नमो नमो हर परमेश्वर नमो नमो
श्री परमेश्वर नमो नमो हर परमेश्वर नमो नमो
शिवनटनेश्वर नमो नमो योगी रामसूरत्कुमार नमो नमो
शिवनटनेश्वर नमो नमो योगी रामसूरत्कुमार नमो नमो
योगी रामसूरत्कुमार नमो नमो
योगी रामसूरत्कुमार योगी रामसूरत्कुमार योगी रामसूरत्कुमार जय गुरुराया योगी रामसूरत्कुमार योगी रामसूरत्कुमार योगी रामसूरत्कुमार जय गुरुराया योगी रामसूरत्कुमार योगी रामसूरत्कुमार योगी रामसूरत्कुमार जय गुरुराया எந்தையே வந்து நீ எந்தனை வலியவே விந்தையாண்டு கொண்டாய் உந்தை தவமின்றி உந்தனை அடைய கடையரது கை கூடுமோ அன்பல்லாதாகாதல் கண் தந்த தெய்வம் நீ கண் கண்ட கடவுளன்றோ எங்கள் குலதெய்வமா கந்த நீயேயல கண்ட பின் உனை விடுவனோ மந்தமதியால் வாழ்வில் பந்தம் பெருக்கி பல பாவம் புரிந்த பதிதம் வந்து வந்து அண்டினே கைவிடாது என்னை நீ காப்பதும் கடன் ஐயனே அந்தரத்து அமரரும் கரியுளா மகிமையுள அருணயம் பதியின் வாழே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராமசூரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராமசூரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே யோகி ராமசூரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே பிள்ளை பிள்ளை பல பெற்ற தாய் பிரியம் அவர் பாலின்றி பிரிதொன்றும் எண்ணுவாளோ நொல்லையும் நொண்டியும் கள்ளமே ஆனாலும் தள்ளுவோ தாயும் முந்தன் பிள்ளைகளில் நாயினே நல்லவனல்லேனெனினும் தாயில்ல சேயல்லவே கொள்ளை நோய் கொடிய வினை சூழினும் பாரினில் தாங்குவது தாயின்றியார் எள்ளளவும் என் கதறல் அகில உலக அன்னை உன் செவியில் சேரவில்லையோ பிள்ளை மனம் கல் பெற்ற தாய் மனம் பித்தென்னும் மாற்றத்தை மாற்றிவிடவோ வள்ளிகாந்தன் பக்த அருணகிரியை காத்த அருணயம் பதியின் வாழ்வே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே வாயில் படுக்காத நான் நோயுற்றுழலாதனை காத்து வரும் காருண்யனே தீவினை ஒன்றென்று நோயென்று பெயர் கொண்டு என்னை தாக்கி வாட்டி வருதே தீயதோ சக்தி இதன் மாயம் அறிந்திலேன் தாங்கும் திறம் ஒன்றிலே தீயதேயாயினும் நோயதேயாயினும் நின் பார்வை முன் நிற்குமோ தாயினும் தயவுடன் தீனரை காத்து வரும் தன்களி தெய்வமே இப்பாவிக்கு இறங்கி உன் பார்வையை காட்டி பிணியை நீ தீர்க்கொண்டானோ தூயவர் கூடிடும் தேசுரு திருத்தலம் அருணயம் பதியின் வாழ்வே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே பெஞ்சமரில் அஞ்சாத வேந்தரும் உன்னையே வந்திக்க வந்து நிற்பர் வஞ்சக உழைப்பவர் கொஞ்சம் என் அருகில் வர பஞ்சவதில் விந்தையேது பஞ்சமா பாதகரும் நெஞ்சார மாறி உன்னை தஞ்சமென்றடைவராயின் பஞ்சேல் என்று அபயம் அளித்தவரை ஆட்கொள்ளும் அற்புத தெய்வம் நீயே செஞ்சுடர் வேலனே பைஞ்சுடர் ராமனே கஞ்சமலர் கண்ணனும் நீ சஞ்சல தோடுமை கெஞ்சிடும் மகதிபார் கொஞ்சம் இறங்க உணாதோ நெஞ்சில் நினைக்கவே முக்தி தரும் மகிமையுள்ள அருணயம் பதியின் வாழ்வே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே பக்தர் பால் பறிவுற்று பல நோய்கள் தீர்த்தவரை பரிசுத்தமாக்கும் பரனே புத்துயிர் பெற்றவர் பக்தி பெருக்காலின் முக்திக்கு முயலாததே. புத்தியின் குறைவிதோ சக்தி இல்லாமையோ சப்தம் வினையின் பயனோ. கர்த்தனே நிந்தனி கருணையில்லார்க்கும் இப்பிறவி பயன் எய்துமோ. அத்தனே ஆதியே அன்பர் சகாயனே உத்தமர்கள் தம் நேயனே. நித்திய பொருளை திட்டம் இலக்கையம் புத்தியை இயக்குவிப்பாய். சித்தரும் முக்தரும் பக்தரும் நிறைந்த திரு அருணயம் பலியின் வாழ்வே. அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே. அன்பர் கலி தீர்க்கவே வந்ததோர் யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே. யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் என்ற குருவே. யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார், யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார், யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் ஜெய குரு ராயா. யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார், யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார், யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் ஜெய குரு ராயா. யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார், யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார், யோகி ராம்சுரத்குமார் ஜெய குரு ராயா. 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 योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार जय गुरु राया. योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार जय गुरु राया. योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार जय गुरु राया. योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार, योगी रामसूरतकुमार जय गुरु राया. ராம்சூரத்குமார் எனும் பேராளர் பெரும் ராசர யோகியாய் அருள்கின்றார். ராம்சூரத்குமார் எனும் பேராளர் பெரும் ராசர யோகியாய் அருள்கின்றார். ஆம்பரம் எண்ணில கேட்டாலும் அவர் அன்புடன் நமக்கெல்லாம் தருகின்றார். உம்மையும் உணர்ந்த முனிவரவர் சுடர் ஒளி முகம் கண்டதும் வினையோடும். நம்மையும் அவர் போல் கடவுளிடம் மிக நன்னி செய்திடும் தயவாளர். அருணையில் ஒளியாய் திகழ்கின்றார். புயலற்புதம் செய்துளம் மகிழ்கின்றார். கருணைய வடிவாய் வாழ்கின்றார். இறை காட்சியில் அடிக்கடி வாழ்கின்றார். யாசக ஞானின மொழிகின்றார். பல யாசிக்கும் நிலையினில் இருக்கின்றார். பேசரும் கடவுளின் குழந்தை என இவர் பேசிடும் பொழுதெல்லாம் உணர்கின்றோம். மேல் வாழலை வேண்டாமல் ஒரு விசிறியால் வினைகளை தாண்டுகிறார். பல்கால் பயின்றிடும் ஞானத்தினை கண் பார்வையால் பெற்றிட செய்கின்றார். மனத்திருள் போக்கிடும் மகத்துவரின் பொன் மலரடி வணங்கிடில் உய்ந்திடலாம். நினைத்தவை முடித்திடும் நிலை கண்டு நம் நெஞ்சகம் அடைக்கலம் கொண்டிடலாம். ராம் சூரத்குமார் எனும் பேராளர் பெரும் ராசர யோகி அருள்கின்றார். மனத்திருள்
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. We hope all of you had a refreshing and rejuvenating tea break. We have a very informative morning and afternoon session. Today's topic, the focus is going to be on maths and astronomy. A big thank you to all the inspired audience who are here today to listen to our distinguished speakers. In any academic conference, a plenary address sets the tone for the entire proceedings. It inspires, informs, and piques the interest of the audience. We are blessed to have with us today our chief guest, Professor M.D. Srinivas from the Center of Policy Studies in Chennai. We are certain that his plenary address will awaken, nurture, and motivate the thirst for knowledge within all of us. Sir, we request you to please come on stage and give the plenary address.
It's there. Thank you. Namaskaram. I am back here once again. So, okay. There will be experts who will be talking a lot of details of Indian astronomy and mathematics. Professor Pai will be speaking after me, and in the afternoon, Professor Ram Subramaniam and Professor R. N. Iyengar will tell you a lot of very important and interesting things. So I have tried to summarize the development of astronomy and mathematics in India. So it will be something like a overview of the history. Full screen. They only need to push it down to your page. In the view, view, that's it. Okay. So roughly I will try to cover this in the next 45 minutes. So what was Indian astronomy and mathematics? What were its main contributions in the what may be called the ancient period? prior to 300 BCE. Then the long classical period from 300 BCE to 1300 CE. Then in the medieval period, and something about how Indian astronomy and mathematics was at the onset of British rule in 18th and early 19th century. And as we all know that this got disrupted and the practice of Indian knowledge systems got a setback during the British rule, not only because of government policy, much more so because of the British implanted system of education, which took us away from our traditional or Indian knowledge systems. Now in the last 100-150 years, many great scholars have done significant work to recover our ancient knowledge, to republish texts, to write new commentaries, also write translations in English, in Hindi, in Indian languages, and write articles. But even after 150 years of this kind of work, we are far away, as I will show you, from acquiring even a surface knowledge, let alone a comprehensive knowledge of the Indian mathematics and astronomy as it developed over the previous 5 to 6 millennia. And now if we are very keen that we have to have a resurgence of Indian civilization in the modern times, one of the necessities, one of the prerequisites is that we should have a very comprehensive understanding of our own Bharatiya Jnana Parampara to be able to absorb whatever we need to absorb from all other ancient and modern knowledge systems all over the world. And so we anchor our current endeavors firmly in the Indian knowledge tradition and practices. That's what is needed today. So if we go to the Vedic texts, they are not texts of astronomy or mathematics, but they give us a lot of information about the knowledge of mathematics and astronomy in those times. So they have a lot of details of the 27 nakshatra system, and one very interesting thing which will enable us to date these texts is the mention of the Dhruvatara, which I will say something more in the next few minutes. And that dates these texts to at least observations made in 2800 years prior to the Common Era. There are other things about equinoxes and solstices that also I will explain, which take us to 1800 texts which give observations which correspond to 1800 BCE. And I am sure Professor Iyengar in the afternoon will give you much more details of this. Then the ancient archaeological sites, Dholavira or the one near Rakhigarh, many of these sites, of course the old Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, have lots of ancient astronomical and mathematical information. The dimensions of these, the geometrical shapes of these, the weights and measures used there. And there are texts now which we can reconstruct. The text of Parashar Tantra has been reconstructed. It's a very ancient text. Much of its material goes to 1350 BC. It talks of this winter solstice, as I said, at Shravishtadi, and that corresponds to 1350. It talks of solar nakshatra zodiac. That means sun entering various rashis as the measure of various seasons, not the lunar months that we predominantly use today in many parts of India. In Tamil Nadu, we'll use the solar months still. And has some information on the planetary periods also. Then there is this text called Vedanga Jyotisha of Lagadha. It's a very small text of 40 verses, but it gives how to compute the tithis and nakshatra, the mean values of them over a period of 5 years. So it's one of the earliest mathematical algorithmic texts that we have in India. Now about this Dhruvatara. Now we all know that Earth spins about an axis, and this axis, if we extend it to sky, that will meet the celestial sphere as we call in some particular point. So that will be called the celestial north pole. Just as the Earth has a north pole, if you extend that axis to the sky, that will be the celestial north pole. If there is a star at the celestial north pole, that can be called a pole star then. And it is a fact of astronomy that has been discovered in the last 3,000-4,000 years, that this celestial North Pole is not with the same nakshatra all the time. In fact, it executes a circle, as I have pointed out there, over a very long period of 26,000 years. And so this works like an indicator of periodizing ancient phenomena for us. And today, around 2000, plus 2000, I have shown you a bright star. That is the pole star that we see today. That is called Alpha Ursa Minoris. And this is near the North Celestial Pole only in the last 300-400 years. So before 1600 of our common era, there was no star near the North Celestial Pole. And when was there a star near the North Celestial Pole? You go to below 2000, between 4000 to 2000, you see a long constellation where a star is intersecting that path. That constellation was called in our Vedic text as Shinshumara. It is a sea animal. It has 14 stars in it. There is a pentagon below or a quadrilateral below. Then there are various stars going up. And it's called the dragon constellation in modern astronomy. So that star today is called Alpha Draconis. In our Vedic text, it is called Abhaya Dhruva. So this was the Dhruva Tara that our ancients observed, and that was at the North Celestial Pole only at about 2800 BCE. And about 500 years later, that pole would have significantly moved away from that star, so there was no longer any Tara at the Dhruva's place. So this is the Taittiriya Aranyaka text which talks of this Shinshumara constellation and talks about these 14 stars, and then ends by saying Dhruvastvamasi Dhruvasya Kshitimasi Tvam Bhutanam Adhipatirasi Tvam Bhutanam Shreshtosi. So this is Taittiriya Aranyaka. And the same thing has come in what is called the Brahmanda Purana. As we all know, the Itihasas and Puranas are supposed to be Upabrahmanas of the Vedic texts. That they, whatever is not clear to us in Vedas, we can always try and understand it by studying the Itihasas and Puranas carefully. So the Brahmanda Purana has the same description of these 14 stars. Yoyam Chaturdisham Puchhe Shaishumare Vyavasthitaha Uttana Pada Putrosau Medhi Bhuto Dhruvo Divi. So Dhruva is in the part of this Shinshumara constellation. It's the 14th star there. So it describes the same thing. So this was the ancient Dhruva that our Vedic seers or in the Vedic period that was observed, and that corresponds exactly to 2800 BCE. And after 1000 years, it was clear that there was no star near the celestial pole. Therefore, one was not talking of a Dhruvatara. In our astronomy text, no longer talked of a Dhruvatara. They only talked about a north celestial pole, but there was no star situated there. Only in the last 300-400 years, you have a star now. And this Alpha Ursa Minoris, which we call as Dhruva today in Madras city, if you see above 14 degrees from the horizon, 13 degrees, that's the latitude of Madras, towards the north direction, you can see the pole star, that is Alpha Ursa Minoris. So this entire thing, this is an emerging perspective. This was rediscovered only about 12 years ago by Professor R. Nayangar, who will be talking to you in the afternoon. That this was there in Taittiriya Aranyaka, this Dhruva, which our society never forgot. So we kept talking of Dhruva even during the entire 4000 years when there was no star in the position of North Celestial Pole. Now this Vedanga Jyotisha, it takes only a 5-year period, but this 5-year period, it takes the year to be nearly 366 days. It is chosen because it is a common factor for both the what is called the synodic period, that is the time period from Amavasya to Amavasya or Paurnima to Paurnima, which is about 29.53 days. And what is called the sidereal period, that is the time taken by moon to go from one nakshatra all around and reach the same nakshatra once again. And so that's about 27.32. And this is a common period for that is about 1830 days. So this was known at the time of Vedanga Jyotisha. And Vedanga Jyotisha also had something very interesting. It had a simple formula for the length of the day. As you know, if you look up the newspaper, the sunrise time, sunset time, it is never 12 hours. And at at that time Vedanga Jyotisha gives a formula for the variation of the daylight time, and the daylight goes from 12 hours to 18 hours there. But it gives that long straight line, that is the formula. So most people, when modern Indologists started looking at Vedanga Jyotisha, they said this 18 to 12, 3:2 ratio can happen only in latitudes of 32, 33. So that doesn't happen in the Indian subcontinent. It is somewhere in Iraq or what used to be called Mesopotamia. So they said this was borrowed from Mesopotamia. So this is a graph which was drawn by a Japanese scholar called Ohashi, who analyzed this question and said that straight line and that those two curved lines which correspond to 27 degrees and 29 degrees, that straight line is very close to those two curved lines, and not to the curved line corresponding to 35 degrees north latitude. 35 degrees north latitude, this straight line fits only in the end points, 0 and that is 12 hours and 18 hours, whereas the actual curve of the variation of length given in Vedanga Jyotisha corresponds to latitudes of 27 degrees or 29 degrees, which is near Uttar Pradesh and things like that. Now we come to the later period. I am just giving you overall view of what were the texts and then one or two highlights from that period. So Shulva Sutras are the oldest texts of astronomy. They belong to the Vedanga known as Kalpa. They tell you how to construct the Vedic Yajna Vedis. So they give exact procedures for constructing and also transforming geometrical figures and altars. And the two instruments used are a rope, which is similar to what you use as a compass today, and a gnomon, a shanku. So these are the two things. The rope serves both as a compass and also as a scale. So using a gnomon or a stick and a rope, they discovered several things. So this Baudhayana Shulva Sutra has all these information, and this roughly 600 BC. Bhasas Swatnavasavadatta and Pancharatra, the word Shunya occurs for emptiness. And this Nyaya Sutra, they call one category as Abhava, absence. So all these were precursors of zero, and so this decimal place value system and zero developed around this period, 300 to beginning of Common Era. By beginning of Common Era, it was there. Then there are ancient astronomical Siddhantas. Unfortunately, we do not have any of those ancient Siddhantas in a datable form with us today. There are some allusions to them in later texts. The Chandravakyasa Vararuchi, Pai will say something more about it. I will only indicate one or two sutras of them. And there is something called the Bakshali manuscript, which was a manuscript which was obtained near Peshawar about a late part of 19th century. That is one text which has lots of problems and solutions. And it is dated to various times from about 1st century to 6th century. In fact, about 2 years ago, the manuscript of this actually is in Bodleian Library in Oxford. They did some carbon dating of few of the leaves and found 3 different periods in that text. So how did this place value system develop? We all know number 235 is 2 into 100 plus 3 into 10 plus 5. So that is called the decimal. And if it's 205 with a 0 in between, it is only 2 into 100 plus 0 into 10 plus 5. So the Vedas itself have the decimal way of nomenclature, naming numbers. So naming 1, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000 in Greek and Roman tradition, beyond 10,000, in fact beyond 1,000 itself, no names were found. Yajurveda has numbers up to 10 to the power 12. And even Yajurveda has the words Shunya, and even an idea of an infinity is there in the famous Shanti mantra of Ishavasya Upanishad, Purnamadaha Purnamidam. Now this Ashtadhyayi also, as I said, uses the idea of a 0 syllable, and this Abhava and these things are all there. So by about the beginning of Common Era, this place value system is supposed to have been in place in India. And it's there to the extent that even philosophical texts talk about the value of a symbol depending on the location of that symbol. So if you say 12, the 1 there has value 10 and not just 1. So that is, if you write 1, 2, the 1 there has the value of 10. So that is what is explained in various philosophical texts, that the same line standing at different places has different values. And by the time of Aryabhatiya, Indians had all the importance of place value system is you can write systematic ways of doing all basic calculations, starting from addition, multiplication, division and all that, which were considered very difficult till then. And till the time others adopted place value system outside India, these basic calculations were considered almost, the long division was a nightmare in Europe till 15th-16th century. So all this were developed in India by 500 year of the Common Era by the time of Aryabhatiya. Now, to use these numbers in text, you don't keep on saying 342, 7,435 and all that. You cannot construct good verses around them. So various systems were used. One system called Bhuta Sankhya, which says if you say I, it means 2. If you say Guna, it means 3. If you say Veda, it means 4. So that is one way of using words to convey numbers in poetry. There is another method called Katapayadi. This got developed by about, Bhuta Sankhya is already present in Pingala's Chandra Sutra in 300 BCE. This Katapayadi is there in text starting 6th, 7th century, astronomical text. An earlier version Aryabhata proposed in 499, more complicated. This uses the consonants. Ka means 1, Ka means 2, Ga means 3, Ga means 4, Na means 5. Like that, the 10 consonant in Kavarga and Chavarga will go from 1 to 0. Tavarga and Tavarga will go from 1 to 0 once again, 1, 2, 3, 4 to 9 and 0. Pa, Pa, Ba, Ba, Ma go represent 1 to 5. Then Yara, Lava. Many of you who will be attending music concerts will know that these are used in naming all those 72 Melakartas. That if you have Dhira Shankara Bharanam, Dha is 9 and Ra is 2 and you have to invert it to get 29, that which is the Melakarta name of Shankara Bharanam. So this was used to say this verse in Sadratnamala, which is one of the late Indian texts in 19th century, gives pi's value up to 17 decimals. So this phrase, Bhadram Buddhi Siddha Janma Ganita Shraddhasmayad Bhubagihi. So Bha is 4, Dra you have to take the second consonant only, Ra is 2, Ambu again that is Ba is 3, Dha is 9, so that 4, 2, 3, 9 in the end come there. So like that pi is given by just this Bhadram Buddhi Siddha Janma Ganita Shraddhasmayad Bhubagihi gives you the value of pi to 17 decimals. Now these Chandravakyas of Vararuchi give you the position of moon for 248 successive days. Those days have to be chosen, initial point has to be chosen correctly. So if today the moon's longitude is 0 and moon is in same place as what is called the apogee, Chandrocha, next day moon's longitude will be 12 degrees 3 minutes. And that is given by this Vakya, Girna Shreya. Next day it will be 24 degrees 09 minutes. That is given by the Vakya, Dhenava Shrihi. In Dhenava Shrihi, the last one is Shrihi. We start with Dha, Dhenava, that is 9. Na is 0, that is 0. Vaha is 4, that is 4. Shrihi is 2, so 24 degrees 9 minutes comes as Dhenava Shrihi. And Bhavet Sukham is the 248th Vakya. So people, I mean even till about 100 years ago there are anecdotes, even people who have written books in 1980s have said in my young age I had contested all these 248 Vakyas and they could get the position of moon very easily. Now what do Tamilians do? Because Tamil does not have Kavarga, Kakha, Ga, Gha, Nga, we have only Kanga, in Chanya, Tana, Tana. So the Tamil text came up with a very interesting method that is related with vowels. So A, I, E, U, A, I, O, O, Au correspond to numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. O, O, Au is all 0. So Girna Shreya is Vinnor Nadan. So V is E, that is 3. O is 0. Na is 2. Ta is 1. So 12 degrees 3 minutes is Vinnor Nadan. 24 degrees 9 minutes is Paim Polindan and ER Netral. So this was the method used in the 13th century text called Chudamani Ullamudiyan. It's a very famous Vakya text that was developed in Tamil. Okay, now we come to the classical period. So here we start with Aryabhatiya. Then commentary on Aryabhatiya was written by a person called Bhaskara, who is different from the famous Bhaskaracharya who comes in 12th century. He wrote 3 works, Aryabhatiya, Bhashya, Mahabhaskariya. Then there is the great Brahmagupta, who wrote 2 works, Brahmasputa Siddhanta and Khandakadyaka. They became famous not only in India, but they were translated into Arabic within 100 years of Brahmagupta's time. Then this Pingala's work on meters was continued for Prakrit and Pali meters by Virahanka in Vritta Jati Samuchaya. And in this work, for the first time, you see the occurrence of numbers that we today call as Fibonacci numbers. What are Fibonacci numbers? 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, etc. So each successive number is the sum of the 2 previous numbers. That is called Fibonacci sequence. So what are called the Matra Vrittas have that characteristic, and that is what was discovered by Virahanka. And it's 5 centuries before Fibonacci. It's in 6th century. Now to give you an idea, by this time this Indian calendar was developed. The basic thing about Indian calendar is it's observational. It is not something declared or decreed by a king or something that it should be, this month should be called Julian after July after Julius Caesar, or this is Augustus, August after Augustus and all that. And so the year is, there are 2 kinds of years. The solar year is the time taken by sun to go from one nakshatra to the same nakshatra. That is called the sidereal solar year. It's about 365.25636. But there is another year called tropical year that goes from equinox to equinox. Equinox is the point where the day and night are the same. Today it occurs around March 21st or September 21st. And this point equinox, like the solstice, keeps moving around. That precession I told you, just as the pole keeps changing and comes back once in 26,000 years. This equinox also moves around once in 26,000 years. So this tropical year is slightly different from the sidereal year. And apart from that, we have months which go from Amavasya to Amavasya or from Paurnima to Paurnima. And then we have a calendar which is a mix of both solar and lunar. And in parts of India like Tamil Nadu, we have mostly solar calendar, that sun going from one Rashi to another. But the many festivals are conducted as per Tithis or Nakshatras, which depends on the lunar calendar. But and this calendar is there in Orissa, Bengal, Assam, Punjab and Gujarat. So in South India, we have a lunisolar calendar where Yugadi always happens between March 14th and April 14th. It's the next date next to Amavasya, and that is when the year lunisolar year begins. Each month is a lunar month of about 29.53 days. But 12 months is not exactly equal to one solar year of 365.256 days. So you have to have an Adhika Masa, which occurs on the average once in 3 years. And they have very nice exact rules. So this entire Indian calendar is knowing the Tithi, knowing the Nakshatra, or knowing the Tedi in solar calendar, you know the configuration of sun, moon and stars. Now this Aryabhatiya has all these mathematical things, much of which that we teach in school, most of arithmetic, geometry and trigonometry and algebra, and it has many other things like how to compute sines and how to solve indeterminate equations and things like that. So in 32 verses, Aryabhata compressed all of the known mathematics in his Aryabhatiya. And he also summarized whole of astronomy in about 76 verses. Aryabhatiya is only 108 verses. So the basic astronomy was of the Taragrahas, the 5 planets, Buddha, Shukra, Guru, Shani and Angaraka, and sun and moon. And the periods that they had were very close to what we now know as the modern periods. But for Buddha and Shukra, they have a period which is different. I mean, this is actually the period you should recognize of their going around the sun. But they were not talking of the planets going around the sun at the time of Aryabhata. And then the astronomy was done by calculating the mean position and giving 2 corrections. And one correction was to correct for what we know as the elliptical orbit of the planet today. Another correction was to go from a sun-centric frame of reference to an earth-centric frame of reference. So the corrections were made using what are called epicycles, that the planet moves on a small circle around a big circle that will take care of the ellipticity of the orbit. And this ellipticity of the orbit that they gave at the time of Aryabhatta were very close except for Mercury, where it's somewhat different, 0.075 and 0.412. So basically we had a fairly sophisticated planetary model by about 500 of the Common Era, and it was better than the Greek model because it took care of what is called the latitude, which is the deviation of a planet. The planets don't move in the same plane in which Earth moves around the Sun. So this deviation is taken care of appropriately, especially for the interior planets Mercury and Venus in the Aryabhatan model, which was not the case for the Greek model of Ptolemy. But more than the planetary model, we had a very good understanding of what the science of astronomy was about. Bhaskara, who writes this commentary on Aryabhatiya in around 619, he is telling us the notions such as Ucha, Madhyama, epicycle, these are all the concepts which occur in calculating planetary positions. They are conceptual tools which serve the purpose of arriving at the observed motion of planets. And there is no constraint of them except that they should lead to observed results. So it's a model. That's what he's saying. And so don't confuse every aspect of it with the elements of reality out there. Because what is accessible to you is the position of the planet. You don't know what is actually happening, why it is moving, or what is going on. So you have some regularity which you observe, for which you make a theoretical framework, and that should be taken only as a model, and not as the ultimate way in which heavens move. So from Greek times, their idea was to understand how the heavens move exactly. And all the ideas that they had were of course wrong, but at each time they believed that they knew how the heavens move. Whereas Bhaskara is telling us that we are only making models of motion of planets, and they are useful as long as they conform with what you observe, otherwise you change them. Brahmagupta had this formula for the diagonals of a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle called cyclic quadrilateral. These were rediscovered in Europe around late 17th century and early 18th century. More than that, Brahmagupta had this very interesting equation. X squared minus dy squared is equal to k. This is called Varga Prakriti equation. Here d is given. D is an integer which is given, which is not a square. And k is given. And you want to solve for x and y in integers. So such a problem is called an indeterminate equation today. And this particular equation with k is equal to 1 is called Pell's equation today. So why this equation was considered? Because if you solve this x and y that you get are very close to square root of d. That they will give you what is called a rational approximation to root d. So this Shulba Sutra approximation of square root of 2, which I showed you earlier, that is actually 577 by 408 as an approximation to root 2. And that satisfies 577 squared minus 2 into 408 squared is equal to 1. That's a solution of the Varga Prakriti equation, which means the interest in that kind of equation must have gone back to Shulba Sutra. Then Brahmagupta comes up with something more interesting. He says you find a solution for a K1 and K2, then you can get a solution for K1, K2. This is a very abstract kind of concept, talking about not just algebra where people were adding, multiplying, polynomials, etc. He is telling you how to go from one set of solutions to another set of solutions. That kind of abstract algebraic notions arose only in 19th century in Europe. This is called Bhavana, Brahmagupta's Bhavana. Using it, he was able to show that knowing one equation, you can find infinite number of solutions. Things like that. Now we move to the post-Brahmagupta period. There are various important works. There is a Parahita system, which is an improvement of Aryabhata's astronomy. The Surya Siddhanta that we use today comes around this period. It's not an ancient text as such. Then there are various scholars, Sridhara, Lalla, Govinda Swami, who make very important contributions. The first text which is devoted entirely to mathematics, apart from the old Shulba Sutras, which were devoted of course to geometry, but also to construction of Yajnavedis, is a text called Ganita Sara Sangraha by Mahavira. He was in 850. Then there are various other texts, and at this time astronomy becomes more sophisticated. People start talking about what is called instantaneous velocity of planets. There are better corrections for moon. And there is a method called Chakravala. I am again wanting to tell you because this is something about this equation that we talked. Anyway, we'll come back to that. So by about 1000 AD, the image of India as a source of science was very high. Here is an extract from an Islamic scholar who lived in Spain. At that time, Spain was under Islamic rule, 1068. So he's comparing various categories of nations, and he's saying the king of India is known as the land of wisdom. And Indians have excelled in the science of numbers, in science of movement of stars, and also in their skill of medical science. So India was the land of science and technology in 1066 AD. So you also have this description of India by Al-Biruni, who traveled with Mahmud of Ghazni and stayed in India for about 7-8 years between 1020 and 1030. And he is saying Mahmud has utterly ruined the prosperity of India. Hindu sciences have retired far away from those parts of the country conquered by us, and they have fled away to Kashmir. Kashmir they could not go, and Banaras, which was somewhat far away. But the main thing, what Al-Biruni is saying about India is something that we cannot believe today. Hindus believe that there is no country like theirs, no nation like theirs, no kings like theirs, no religion like theirs, no science like theirs. I don't know there are any Indians of that type today in India. Now coming to the final part of this period, Bhaskaracharya's 3 books, Lilavati, Bijaganita and Siddhanta Shiromani. First one is on arithmetic and algebra. Second one is on, first one is on arithmetic and geometry. Second one is on algebra. Siddhanta Shiromani is a text on astronomy. Now, main thing about Bhaskara is he wrote commentaries and all this. So it was almost like a teacher's exposition of the entire subject. The verses was for the students to remember, and the commentary was for the students to understand. So it's one of the earliest of that category of text. There must have been similar older texts which are not available to us today. And so that tells us how things were understood. Things were not understood merely as statements by the teacher. So if it was mathematics, they had to provide some justification. Today we call them proofs. They call them upapattis or nyayas or yuktis. So these commentaries of Bhaskara are filled with such proofs. There were works on prosody and also music where this combinatorics, you know, Tala is a very complicated combinatorial structure that the 2 mridangam players, the moment one person starts playing it, the other person knows what it is, the Kanjira knows exactly what is the combination of various dhadin, dhina that the other person is producing. Similarly in prosody there was Laghu and Guru. So this was all mathematical study of this was in works on prosody and music. Sangita Ratnakara, all of you would have heard, is a very great text of music written around 1225 by Shangadeva, whose ancestors came from Kashmir to Devagiri, where this text was written, Daulatabad today. That has one chapter on combinatorics of swaras, what are called swaratanas. So how many permutations can be there, and how to organize all these permutations into one sequence. So this was studied in Europe in 18th century. Shangadeva has the complete algorithm for these combinatorical algorithms. Similarly, he had a big section on taras. This was the time when astronomy and mathematics books were beginning to be written in regional languages. Pavluri Ganita, Mallana, Andhra Tika on Surya Siddhanta, that's Telugu commentary by Mallikarjuna Suri, Vihar Ganita of Rajaditya, Prakrita Pengalam, that's a prosody text in Prakrit, Chudamani Ullamudiyan I mentioned of Tirukoshtiyur Nambi, Ganita Sara Kaumudi is written again in Prakrit by Thakur Peru, like that. And then that wave of writing technical books in Indian languages continued till 18th, 19th century. So this Varga Prakriti equation, an algorithm for completely solving it, was found by a person called Jayadeva. And Bhaskara has explained it in his Bijaganita book. And the algorithm looks like this. It's not very complicated. If we have time, we can teach it to a student of class 10 or class 11 very easily. And the procedure leads into some kind of a table like this. So this equation x squared minus 61y squared is equal to 1, with the condition that you should solve it for x and y integers. The first lowest solution has about 10 digits for x, and 9 digits for y. No number less than that solves this equation. And this same equation was posed as a problem by a French mathematician, very famous one, called Fermat in 17th century, 1657. He gave it as a challenge to the European mathematicians, especially the British mathematicians. So finally the British and the French mathematicians came up with an algorithm which we today call Euler-Lagrange algorithm. But the algorithm discovered in 18th century, around 1770s, is longer, is less optimal than Chakravarti, which uses 30% steps less than the algorithm that Euler and Lagrange came up around 1000 years or 800 years after Jayadeva originally discovered it. So even for 10 million numbers, this 69 is the ratio of the number of steps taken by Euler-Lagrange to number of steps taken by Chakravarti to the number of steps taken by the European algorithm of 18th century. All this is being discovered only today. So this is the emergent science and perspective on science and technology. Now this Bhaskara explains the notion of proofs in Indian mathematics. Maybe with that I will conclude. Basically the idea of proofs in Indian mathematics was not to establish the truth of a result once and for all. That if I say I have proved something, you don't write QED after that saying that this has been done. Nobody needs to worry about this. Proof was to see that the other mathematicians understand that you are given an argument justifying the given conclusion that you are claiming. So it was to convince other mathematicians about the validity of your result. Second one was that there are no doubts about the result. So the two characteristics of Upapatti is Praudhim, Praudhasabhasu Naiti Ganako, Nissamshayo na Swayam. So without proof, a mathematician will not be respected in the committee or the sabhas of mathematicians, and he will never be sure of his result. So there was no statement that the proof is to establish the truth of the result once and for all for eternity. You might have all heard of the great mathematicians called Hardy, who sort of helped Ramanujan to go to England. So he has written a book called Mathematician's Apology. Hardy was a great agnostic, and he didn't believe in religion, etc., etc. So he says, mathematics is my religion. And why is it so? Because the results of mathematics are eternal. So this is the sort of understanding of what should be ideal mathematics that started with the Greeks and persists in modern mathematics. But this ideal is not fulfilled. The proofs written by Euclid, there were hundreds of holes that were discovered in the next 1500 years. And it was only in early 20th century that a mathematician called Hilbert wrote a Foundations of Geometry to free it from all the loopholes that were there in the proofs of Euclid. So the claim that my results are eternal, unchangeable, I proved it without doubt from axioms, is made in 300 BC by Euclid, but its justification is coming only in early 20th century, and who knows, in 22nd century we may find. So these are metaphysical claims for mathematics. That was not the nature of mathematics in India. So the proofs in India were from known results to unknown results. They involved general arguments, and they were to obtain the consent in the mathematics community. Sometimes they involved observation and experimentation also. And there was one particular aspect of proofs in Indian mathematics. They did not use what is called the reductioid observer method. That is, you assume the contrary of what you want to prove and show a contradiction. Why is that so? This is a principle even in our Nyaya philosophy. That you want to show the existence of an event, then you have to tell us how to arrive at that of an entity. You want to prove the existence of an entity. Then you have to show how to get to that entity. If it's a mathematical object, you should show a rule by which, if it's a solution of an equation, you have to construct or you have to provide an algorithm for reaching at the solution of that equation. But merely saying that non-existence of a solution contradicts what we know is no way a proof of the existence of that entity. This is a fairly common philosophy amongst a section of mathematicians today. But Indians had adopted it most of their history. And this is called the constructivist philosophy of mathematics today. And there was this later period where the Kerala astronomers came up with this infinite series for pi, sine and cosine functions. 3 minutes more. And similar to the kind of results that Ramanujan derived, Madhava was in 1375 and Ramanujan is finding much more complicated version. This series was used in 1980s to calculate pi correctly up to 1 billion digits. So today Kerala mathematics is called the most advanced culture of mathematics in its time in the world by a Swiss mathematician, friend of our Raghavan here and our pi here. And he is also saying that there were very detailed proofs in the Kerala text. So this Madhava, and he was followed by Parameshwara, Nilakanta Somyaji and Jeshtadeva, who wrote a work called Yukti Bhasha in Malayalam, which has the proofs of almost all these results. And it continued till 19th century. The verse on Katapayadi that I displayed in the beginning is from a text called Sadratnamala by Shankaravarman in 1890. Now another very major thing of Kerala school was the discovery of a planetary model, a revised version of Aryabhata's model, which is akin to the model that we believe today, that the 5 planets go around the sun. So what was the argument for that? It was not that the sun should be at the center of the universe, sun is the source of our life, that we all knew at the time of Vedas. The amount of eulogy or praise or stotra of sun that we have done, maybe no other culture would have done. But astronomically, there were 2 periods associated with these interior planets, Buddha and Shukra. Buddha goes around the sun in 88 days and Shukra goes around the sun in 224 days. How do you arrive at that? That is because the plane in which Buddha is traveling around the sun is inclined to the plane in which Earth is going around the sun. So Buddha is sometimes above that plane and sometimes below that plane, and this is called the latitude of Buddha, and period of latitude is 88 days. Similarly, Shukra goes in a plane which is inclined to the plane in which Earth goes around the sun, and that period is 224 days. Its latitude varies. But there is something called longitude. The Buddha is close to a star today. When will it come to that star once again? That is 365 days. Because it is the sun that is carrying Buddha around the earth. And that's what Nilakanta is explaining. For a planet whose orbit is outside of earth, both the latitude and longitudinal periods will be the same. But for a planet whose orbit, earth is outside of it, the latitudinal period, it's going around some other object, and its latitudinal period is different from the longitudinal period. That's how Nilakanta arrived at the fact that Buddha and Shukra should be going around the sun. And he gave a model which is close to, geometrically close to what Tycho Brahe gave in 1580. But mathematically it is something that is close to the model that was proposed by Kepler, by the 3 laws of Kepler, the elliptical orbit and things like that. The kind of model that Nilakanta has provided around 1500 is similar to, computationally similar to Tycho Brahe's model of. And then Nilakanta also wrote a work called Jyotirmimamsa, where he is explaining that the scientific theories are changing with time. You need not take everything Aryabhata has written as the ultimate thing in astronomy. It is true that Aryabhata did great tapas and he had divine grace to come up with great ideas and concepts and methods and parameters in astronomy. But this divine grace is to provide us the kind of sharp intellect or clear intellect to arrive at a reasonable formulation. And so today we have to do our own theories, we have to observe, and for various reasons our models will not be the same as the ones that were given by ancients. They were true for their times. For our times we have to work out. For various reasons, I mean this can be discussed in philosophy of science more extensively. So these were the kind of ideas on scientific theories that Nilakanta, and from, I told you about Bhaskara about 1000 years earlier. So now we come to 18th century. 18th century was a period where there was lots of science and technology. We had our own system of education. This is the Varanasi Observatory constructed by Raja Jai Singh, and these are the Delhi observatories, and they are accurate up to 1 minute of an arc, which is the best that you can see through the naked eye. Of course, with telescope you can obtain much more. By the time of Jai Singh, telescopes were already there in Europe for more than 100 years. And Jaijing was aware of that. He got the latest tables from France called De la Hire tables. And he did observations with these instruments that he constructed. And he even wrote to Jesuits saying that there is a difference between what your table is giving and what we are observing. So this is the kind of revival of Indian astronomy that was attempted in 18th century. There was extensive teaching of astronomy in various schools. Kerala still continued with lots of students studying astronomy in indigenous colleges, as they were called. But all this was to go. This Navadvipa University had about 1,000 students in 1780, but only 500 in 1829. It had 4,000 students in 1680. And all this was to go by the pronouncement of Macaulay, but not just the pronouncement of Macaulay, but also the fact that many Indians had come to believe, for one reason or the other, that our ancient sciences must have some defect because we have become such a defeated nation and defeated civilization. So it was these ideas also which were responsible for Indians too. Sanskrit system of education would be the best calculated to keep this country in darkness. Ram Mohan Roy, I am not doubting his nationalism or patriotism, but that is the sign of the times, that we had fallen then. And we have still not, as I said in the morning, recovered fully from that. And there are, as I had estimated one time, there are about 30,000 manuscripts associated with 9,000 source texts in astronomy. And in the last 150 years, we have hardly touched the surface of it. And there are many, many more ancient texts which have even been published, which have not been analyzed. And in ancient period, many more manuscripts are also there. And late 18th century also there are hundreds of manuscripts. So we have seen only 5% of them being edited, and much smaller amount being translated and studied for the technical content. So all this points to the fact that it's a growing enterprise, and we need to, India has to recover its civilizational greatness again in the modern times. It has to very quickly remaster all this, look at all this, acquire a comprehensive understanding. Not only manuscripts, inscriptions, records by foreigners, all these things have to be studied with a dispassionate and contemporary sort of mindset. Contemporary mindset meaning not being carried away by any idea of greatness, either of the Western achievements or of Indian achievements, what we are capable of today. And this has to be the job of all our institutions of higher learning. And our students should know at least what we have so far learned in the last 50, 100 years of study of Indian knowledge should be passed on to our students so that they come out of this feeling that perhaps India had very little to show in the level of material knowledge. I thank you, and I call upon Pai to now continue this. Thank you very much.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Thank you so much, sir, for your interesting and informative session on Indian astronomy and mathematics in the ancient period. Next on the agenda is a technical talk by Dr. Venkateshwara Pai. Dr. Venkateshwara Pai is a distinguished physicist. He possesses a profound command of technical Sanskrit and Malayalam. He earned his PhD in the history of astronomy from IIT Bombay, with expertise spanning Sanskrit, mathematics and astronomy. Dr. Pai conducts multidisciplinary research focusing on unraveling the contributions of the Kerala School of Astronomy and Mathematics. His investigations involve the meticulous study of source materials found in palm leaf and paper manuscripts documented in Sanskrit and Malayalam. Currently serving as a professor at IISER in Pune, Dr. Pai is also a respected member of various national level committees dedicated to Indian knowledge systems. Dr. Pai, we look forward to your technical talk. Jai Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar.
Namaste. First of all, I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to talk. The title of the talk is The Vakya System of Astronomy. Professor M.D. Srinivas has given a wonderful overview of Indian mathematics and astronomy. So I would be talking about a specific school called the Vakya school, which is originated in Kerala and developed and mostly popular in Tamil Nadu region. So Professor M.D. Srinivas talked about the texts such as Aryabhatiya, Siddhanta Shiromani and so on. So they come under the category of literature known as Siddhantas. So the the huge corpus of Indian astronomical literature, what do I mean by the comprehensive astronomical literature has been found from 5th century, and the earliest text that we can trace back is Aryabhatiya. And the Aryabhatiya, Siddhanta Shiromani, etc. fall under the category of Siddhantas. So there are two different classes of literature that we can find in Indian astronomical literature, that is Siddhantas and Karanas. Siddhantas are more comprehensive, more mathematically complex, and the Karanas are practical manuals. Similarly, we have two more categories which are mentioned in a text called Vakya Karana, which talks about the Vakya school. They will call Tantra and Mahatantra. So the Vakya system is a separate system which makes use of Vakyas or sentences to obtain different astronomical parameters. So now what is Vakya? So Vakya literally means a sentence consisting of one or more words. In the context of astronomy, it refers to a phrase or a string of letters in which numerical values associated with various astronomical parameters are encoded. So the Vakyas are composed using Katapayadi system of numeration. Professor Srinivas already talked about Katapayadi system. In brief, I will be talking the system in little bit more detail. So there are three systems of numeration that Professor had talked about, that is Bhuta Sankhya system, Katapayadi system and Aryabhatan system. So the one of the system is Katapayadi system of numeration. The Vakyas are composed using Katapayadi system of numeration. So the strings used in composing Vakyas are chosen so that they not only represent numerical values but are also in the form of beautiful, meaningful phrases and sentences that convey worldly wisdom and moral values. For example, these are the earliest set of Vakyas that we can trace back. These are known as Girna Shreyadi Vakyas. So the Vakyas look like this. The professor also talked three of the Vakyas. Girna Shreyaha, Dhenava Shrihi, Rudrastu Namyaha. So we have 248 such Vakyas. Ramagiyate, Atyaharastu, Kavehe Shakyam, Bhavet Sukham. So these are known as Vararuchi Vakyas because it's composed by Vararuchi. And we can trace back this to 5th to 6th century AD or CE, Common Era. So now this is also known as Girna Shreyadi Vakyas, means this starts with the Vakya Girna Shreyaha. And obviously the Girna Shreyaha has a meaning, Dhenava Shrihi has a meaning, and these are all meaningful phrases. However, in the context of astronomy, these represent some numbers. For example, the Girna Shreyaha is 001203, which means 0 Rashis, 12 degrees and 3 minutes. Dhenava Shrihi is 0, 24, 9, that is 0 Rashis, 24 degrees and 9 minutes. And up to Bhavet Sukham we have 0, 27 and 44, that is 0 Rashis. Here 0 is because of, if we split this into 4 syllables, we have these 4 numbers 1, 2, 0 and 0, 3. And there is the absence of 2 more syllables that represents number 0. Whereas if you look at the third Vakya, Rudrastu Namyaha, there we have 5 syllables which represents 0, 1, 0, 6 and 22, which is nothing but the 1 Rashis, 0, 6 degrees and 22 minutes. These Vakyas, what are these Vakyas? These are 248 number. These are known as Chandra Vakyas, Vararuchi Chandra Vakyas or Girna Shreyadi Chandra Vakyas. So these give the mean the true longitude of the moon from first day to the 248th day. So when we memorize all these vakyas, as said by again Professor M.D. Srinivas already talked about this, we can suppose if I want to say find the longitude of the moon on 124th day, you can just memorize and reproduce Ramagiyate, and if you know the Katapayadi system, we can decode the number from Ramagiyate, and that number would be 0, 6, 13 and 52, which is nothing but 6 Rashis. The moon's true longitude is 6th Rashi, 13 degrees and 52 minutes. When I say 6 Rashi is the zodiac. When we divide ecliptic into 12 parts, one part is known as zodiac or the Rashi, and that is equal to 30 degrees, and 1 degree is equal to 60 minutes. The minutes, these are arc minutes. Okay, so now in order to understand the numbers encoded in these vakyas, we need to know Katapayadi system, as Professor has pointed out. So Katapayadi is nothing but Katapaya Adi. Adi means etc. So Katapaya represents 4 consonants in Sanskrit alphabet. Katapaya, which means Kadi, Tadi, Padi and Yadi. When I say Kadi, it's Ka, etc. We have to count number 1 from Ka, and Ka becomes 2, Ga, Gha, Nga, Cha, Cha, Ja, Ja, Nya, goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 0. Then again, Ta, Ta, Da, Da, Na, Ta, Ta, Da, Da, Na, 1 to 0. Then Pa, Pa, Ba, Ba, Ma, 1 to 5, Ya, Ra, La, Va, Sha, Sha, Sa, Ha, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 8. So, here only consonants have numerical significance. In the case of Tamil system, Professor talked about it, the number corresponds to the vowels, but here it is only consonants have numerical significance, no vowels have numerical significance. However, the standalone vowels represent number 0. So let's see an example. Let's take a string or phrase called Chennai. So what one has to do is we have to split this into 2 subunits. So we have Che and Nai. So now the number associated with Cha is 6, whether it's Che or Chi or Chu or Cha, it is only 6, and number associated with Na is 0. Again here there are 2 Nas, because this is called conjoined consonant, there are 2 Nas. Only we have to consider only one Na which is more proximate to the vowel. So the Na which is proximate to the vowel has to be considered here. So Na is 0. Now when we reverse the order, we have number 06, that is associated with the string Chennai as per Katapayadi system. So now let's take another phrase, IIT. So you can split this into syllables. I means it's a vowel, that's 0. I again is 0. So Ta is 1. When we reverse the order, we have 100. The number associated with IIT is 100. So this is how the Katapayadi system works. So now when we apply this system here, so here we have Girna Shreyaha. Ga represents 3. Na represents Gir Naha. Na is the consonant proximate to the vowel, so it's 0. Then Shra, that is Ra, is 2, and Ya is 1. When we reverse the order, we have 12 and 03. So 12 degrees, 03 minutes. And these represent true longitude. When I say true longitude, it is nothing but the true position of the moon from a fixed point. And the fixed point here is nothing but the beginning of the Mesha Rashi or the beginning of the Ashwini Nakshatra. Okay. So now, so in Siddhantic, so in order to appreciate the Vakya system and the algorithm for finding the, we'll be concentrating on finding the moon's longitude for an arbitrary date using Vakya system. So in order to appreciate Vakya system, we should know a little bit about how Siddhantic procedure works. In Siddhantic procedure or algorithm, first step is to find the Ahargana. Ahargana means, Gana means group, Ahar means, Ahaha means day, here day means civil day. Civil day is nothing but time period corresponds to 2 consecutive sunrises. So when I say Ahargana, Annam Ganaha, that is group of civil days. So group of civil days from an epoch, and epoch is usually chosen as the beginning of Kali, which is 3102 BC, February 18, in Siddhantic texts. So the Ahargana is the number of days between this epoch, that is the beginning of the Kali, till the desired date. When I say desired date, what do I mean by that? Desired day means when suppose I want to find the longitude of the moon for today's date, today is the desired day. So the ahargana is the number of civil days elapsed till today from the beginning of Kali. And that has to be multiplied by the number of revolutions made by the planet. Suppose if you want to find the longitude of the moon, we have to multiply the number of revolutions made by the moon in a Mahayuga, which is given in the text, and it has to be divided by the number of civil days in a Mahayuga. So which will essentially give the rate of motion per year, and that per day, that has to be multiplied by ahargana would give the mean longitude of the moon. Once we get mean longitude, we have to apply a samskara called Manda Samskara, which is nothing but the eccentricity correction, which takes care of the eccentricity of the elliptical orbits. Because the Indian assume that the planets are moving in a circular orbit, and the procedures are based on assuming the circular orbits of the planets. Then we have to apply the eccentricity correction, that is known as Manda Samskara, to obtain true longitude of the planet, that is theta, in terms of theta 0, that is the mean longitude of the planet, minus delta theta, that is the correction term, and this sin delta theta is r0 by r. This is again the parameters which are given in the text, which is known as the epicycle ratio of the epicycle radius to the different circle. So now here the theta 0 is the again mean longitude of the planet, and theta u is the mean longitude of its apogee. So when I say apogee, it means suppose here let's take the case of moon. So here is Earth. Moon is revolving around the Earth in a circular orbit. So when it reaches at this point, that is, this is given as moon's upper direction of moon's apogee, it will have the least motion. So the mean longitude of the moon as well, the longitude of the moon as well as its apogee is same in this case. So the eccentricity correction is actually a function of the difference of mean longitudes of the moon and its apogee, that is known as Manda Kendra or longitude of anomaly. So now in Vakya system, so the basic text of Vakya system is known as Vakyakarana, which is of 12th century. The author of the text is not known. They first give a parameter known as Khanda. Khanda literally means apart. So the Vakyakarana, the text Vakyakarana gives this as a phrase, Vede Dhat Jnana Tushtaha. So again, as per Katapayadi, this amounts to 1600984. Khanda is again a part of, Khanda means part of ahargana. So it actually the contemporary ahargana where the moon is in conjunction with its apogee. Obviously, moon is in conjunction. Moon will be in conjunction with its apogee in every 27 days. However, the khanda is chosen in such a way that the time of or the instant of conjunction is more close to the instant of sunrise. So now the text also gives what is known as dhruvas. Dhruva literally means stationary, and in this context, dhruva is a constant value. It's nothing but the constant value for the true longitude. So there are 4 such dhruvas are given. So the Senanarinathanam, Nityadeva Sukhadinam, which amounts to 7 rashis, 2 degrees, 0 minutes and 7 seconds. That is nothing but in degrees 212.00194 and so on. So these are nothing but the dhruva or the true longitude at the khanda. That is, this 160094 is the 160098 fifth day from the beginning of Kali. So the moon's longitude on this day is 212.00194. And this dhruva 297 is 297.80272 corresponds to the longitude or the bhukti, which is known as corresponds to 12,372 days. Suppose the moon starts its motion at 0 longitude. After 12,372 days, it will have moon will have the longitude of true longitude of 297.80278. After 3031 days, it will have 337.51694. So now what are these values correspond to? These are known as anomalistic, the days for anomalistic cycles. So we will talk about this later. if you look at this table, you can see that, so these large numbers, this corresponds to the number of anomalistic revolutions which made by the moon in these many number of days. Which means suppose moon starts its motion from its apogee exactly at the sun, at the time of sunrise, then it will take these many number of revolutions to come back to its apogee which also happens at the time of exactly at the time of true sunrise. So for that the moon will take these many number of days. Okay. Now, so these smaller values are nothing but these successive approximations of these two values. So they are also nothing but in 9 days, in 248 days, moon completes 9 anomalistic revolutions. But they may not come back to the same, come back to the apogee exactly at the sunrise, which means there will be a time difference between the instant of sunrise and instant of conjunction of the moon and its apogee. Okay, so that's the significance of these numbers. So now the algorithm for the computation of moon's longitude. Suppose we need to find the moon's longitude or the true longitude of the moon for an ahargana A, then what we need to do is first we need to find something known as khanda shesha. The term khanda is already defined. We will be again briefly defining that. The khanda is a part of argana, and as per Vakyakarana, that is 16,00984 is the khanda, which means moon and its apogee, the conjunction of moon and its apogee happens close to the sunrise on that day. So the ahargana is the number of days elapsed from the beginning of Kali till today's date. We have to subtract khanda from this ahargana, that is known as khanda shesha. So now khanda shesha is nothing but A minus A prime, that has to be divided by 12372. Then we'll have quotient Q1, we have to store this value, and we have remainder R1 by 12372. So remainder is R1 here, Q1 is the quotient that is obtained, and this R1 has to be divided by, R1 is obviously lesser than 12372, so this has to be divided by the next anomalistic days in next anomalistic revolutions, cycles of anomalistic revolutions. So R1 by 3031, that is Q2 plus R2 by 3031, and R2 is the remainder obtained here. So now R2, here again R2 will be less than 3031 and will be obviously greater than 248. So R2 by 248 we have to do, then we have Q3 plus R3 by 248. And here the R3 is lesser than 248, it can go up from 0 to 248, it can take from values from 0 to 248. So here we have to apply this Vakya, this Chandra Vakya. Okay, so now, so we have got these values Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. These are the quotients. These have to be multiplied by this corresponding dhruvas. Dhruvas are nothing but D1, that we have seen that the moon's longitude corresponds to 12,372 days. That has to be multiplied by the Q1 and it has to be added, and D2 multiplied by Q2 and D3 multiplied by Q2, and we have to add all these results. And this is Di, that has to be added to the D0, which is nothing but this is called as Khandantya Dhruva, which is the Dhruva or the true longitude which is tabulated by the author. Of course, we could obtain that mathematically, but tabulated by the author, that is D0 at the Khanda. Okay, now VR3 is the Vakya corresponds to R3, number R3, which is nothing but the remainder obtained at the last stage. Now let's, so these are the Girnashreyadi Vakyas. Now let's take an example which now will illustrate the procedure. We choose Kalya Hargana A 1851-974. This corresponds to Nija Ashada Krishna Navami Shaka 1891, that is August 6, 1969 CE. So here A is, that is Ahargana is 1851-974, A dash is 16,00984, the Khanda Shesha is 250,990. Now first we need to find first quotient by dividing the Khanda Shesha by 12,372, we get 20 as the quotient, and the remainder here is 3550, that has to be divided by 3031 and the quotient 2 we get as 1, and this has to be divided by 30, and the R2 here is 519. 519 has to be divided by 248, and the Q3 is 2. 519 by 248 is again the R3 for this is 23. So here we have to apply the Vakya 23, and here Q1 is 20, Q2 is 1, Q3 is 2. So D0, we already know the value of D0. D1 multiplied by Q1 plus D2, we get, if we compute this, we get 81.00448 degrees. This has to be added to the number, or the longitude corresponds to 23rd Vakya, which is nothing but Goraso Nanusyat, which corresponds to 10 Rashi 7 degrees 23 minutes, which is 307.38333 degrees. When we add this value to 81 degrees, we get the true longitude of the moon at the time of Ahargana, I mean on the day of Ahargana. Okay. So now so here, so we can see that all these computations have been done by considering that moon coincides with its apogee at the time of sunrise, but it's actually not happening. So there will be, after 12,372, it's approximately, of course, on 12, after each 12,372 days, definitely moon will coincide with its apogee, but not at the time of sunrise. So there will be the finite difference, time difference between the instant of sunrise and the instant of conjunction of moon and its apogee. So there will be an error which will be accumulated because of this time difference, and also we have chosen Khanda by assuming that at the time of Khanda, moon coincides with its apogee exactly at the time of true sunrise, but again it's not actually will not happen. So there will be a finite difference between the instant of sunrise and the instant of conjunction. So all these errors will added up. So the text Karana Paddhati, so this is the Khanda, how much time do I have? 5 more minutes? Okay. The text Karana Paddhati gives 2 separate samskaras, or the correction terms, to address this issue. So they are known as Yogodayantara Samskara and Dhruva Samskara. So the text Vakyakarana does not talk about these samskaras, they just give the algorithm, also not the rationale behind this algorithm. The text Karana Paddhati of Pudumana Somayaji, it's a Kerala astronomical text composed during 1532 CE, gives all such algorithms, rationale, all rationale behind such algorithms. So one such rationale is to find something known as Valyupasamhara, which is known as Valyupasamhara, which to obtain the successive approximation. I'm just this is how the Valyupasamhara works. So since we don't have time, I'm just skipping this. And it also gives the rationale to obtain the Khanda for a contemporary date. And as I mentioned, there are 2 samskaras which is talked in the Karana Paddhati. There is Yogodayantara Samskara and Dhruva Samskara, the samskara which is applied to the Dhruva. There is another text called Vakyakarana of Parameshwara, which is different from old Vakyakarana. So Parameshwara is again Kerala astronomer of around 14th century, 1350 to 1435, during that period. That is early 14th century astronomer. So he has composed another text called with the same name, that is known as Vakyakarana, which is just 60. It contains 60 verses, and he just gives algorithms for just finding the longitude of the moon as well as the sun. In that context, he elaborates a discussion on Dhruva Samskara, where he gives the algorithm for finding the Dhruva Samskara, which is to be applied at the end of once we obtain the value of true longitude of the moon using the Vakyakarana method. Vakyakarana here is old Vakyakarana method. So this is how this Dhruva Samskara, which is given by Parameshwara in his Vakyakarana, Aniya Tungamadhyendu Vakyarambha Dinodaye Tayorantaramanīya Tenendor Madhyamam Gatim चंद्रोच्च भुक्तिरहितां विभजेत लब्धमत्र तु ध्रुव संस्कार संज्ञः स्यात् हारकः स्वर्ण संज्ञितः. First he talks about something known as dhruva samskara haraka, where the gati of the moon, that is the rate of motion of the moon, has the difference between the rate of motion of the moon and its apogee, that is tunga means apogee, has to be divided by their longitudinal difference. Then that is known as dhruva samskara haraka, and this dhruva samskara haraka forms as the divisor for the correction, and the correction is obtained like tungedhike rinakhyaha syad dhanakhyadike vidau dhruva samskara samjnam tu haraka dhruvavat pathet ratnashreyeti samshodhya swodaya sphuta bhuktitaha harakena vibhajyaptam swarnam kuryan nishakare. Nishakara is the moon. So the true rate of the motion of the moon minus 12 degrees 02 minutes should be divided by dhruva samskara haraka to get the correction to the moon. So here we have touched briefly on the algorithms mentioned in the Vakyakarana, old Vakyakarana, to find the true longitude of the moon, and also the rationale, though I have not discussed, by the Karana Paddhati and the Dhruva Samskara which is given in Vakyakarana. The beauty of this Vakya system is this does not involve any sign functions, because when you look at the Siddhantic procedure, so in order to obtain the true longitude of the moon, we have sin delta theta is R0 is a function of sine. So though if we approximate this sin delta theta as delta theta, obviously we have to find the value of sine pertaining to theta 0 minus theta u. So without the knowledge, understanding of sine function, just by using basic mathematical operations, addition, subtraction, division and multiplication, we can obtain the value of true longitude of the moon, true longitude of the sun and other planets at any desired date. So this will be useful for Panchanga Kartas, those who are not very good at mathematical computations. So that's how this system got evolved. And as I told, this is originated in Kerala and it's more popular in Tamil Nadu, which is known as Pambu Panchanga or Vakya Panchanga. Thank you.
Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. Thank you so much, Dr. Pai, for a very, very enthralling and scintillating session. Now we will all break for lunch. We request you all to please have lunch in the first floor. And Dr. Ramanathan also asked me to make an announcement to all our participants today. You are most welcome to share questions with our distinguished speakers. We are also blessed to have such eminent personalities here with us today, sharing such precious knowledge with us. So please feel free to share your questions. After the evening tea session, there will be a panel discussion session during which you can freely interact with our professors. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions before that, please do share them with Dr. Ramanathan and he'll be happy to guide you to the appropriate professors. Please do take a break for lunch now and we will all see you in the afternoon session. Thank you to all the guests. Thank you to all the professors and organizers for making the morning session a very, very successful one. Jai Bhagavan Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Jaya Guru Raya. We would like to make an announcement. Please have lunch now and do assemble in the hall by 2:25 p.m. The next session we hope will proceed as scheduled at 2:30. So we request you all to kindly assemble in the hall by 2:25 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
உலகெல்லாம் மகிழவே ஸ்ரீ
योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, जय गुरु राया। योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, जय गुरु राया। योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, जय गुरु राया। योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, जय गुरु राया। योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, जय गुरु राया। योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, योगी राम सूरत कुमार, जय गुरु राया। जय गुरु राया।